Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. We'll start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The board wants to provide ample opportunity for public comment on matters that come before us. Your input is important. If you wish to address an item already on the agenda, we ask that you do so when that item comes up for discussion. If you have a comment on a matter not on the agenda, this is the time during our meeting for such comments. The board would like to remind everyone in attendance that to avoid violations of individual rights of privacy, a member of the public wishing to address the board during this time will not be allowed to make comments about any student, staff member, or member of the general public. Does anyone wish to speak at this time? Mr. Schindel.
Run down on the buses. It's been fun so far.
Run down is the key word.
So bus 2 over in Missoula, I still have not heard back if it's done yet. I'm hoping it is. Bus 5, I got the oil leak repaired and most of the service done on that. I just need to take it over there. They need to work on the transmission, change the filter and oil and stuff in that. Bus 1 and bus 3 got scheduled to get serviced by TJ's truck down just south of Austin. And bus 4 is okay. Got the insurance cards and all the buses. I think Jeremy's got the handicap and bus 4 being inspected, right?
Yeah, we'll get those done on Thursday, and then the patrol will get those ones for those school bus inspections done next week as well.
So those will be done. DOTs will all be done at the service time, so. I got bus 3 ready to put the cover back on, if your offer's still available to lift that up onto the roof sometime.
Yeah, we'll figure something out.
Okay.
Yep.
I think that's it. Everything's getting ready. So 5 will, like I said, I got most of the service done. It was with the oil pans. Got all the filters changed, except the transmissions. Everything should be good there.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Any questions for Mr. Schindel?
I guess bottom line, Ed, are you concerned about any of the buses not making it? 2 or 3 months, we're good to go for a bit?
We should be.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate it.
Any other public comment? Okay. Do you have any correspondence or anything?
No.
Okay. I do have one, I guess I want to share. I had a conversation with a couple different members of the chamber. Chamber's working on updating their sign out on the street. They're moving it from where it was. They'd like to have a discussion about partnering with the school on that to both utilize, the information that's being presented. They're still in the discussion of where they're going to put that sign. And I told him, I said, we'd love to, sit down and have that conversation about how we can be a part. I said, we don't have a lot of money in terms of partnerships, but, we'd love to have information out there of what the school's doing. So that will be a discussion that we probably, I don't know if that's a technology committee thing or a community service committee thing, but at some point, I think we'll need to sit down with them and have that conversation on how we can utilize that sign that they're working on and share information about this.
So we've explored that already previously, like last year. And it ended up, it's gone wrong, it ended up with, there were just some obstacles because of compatibility with signs and software, money, that was another, what was some of the rest of it?
Yeah, the biggest one was money. We talked with the city about putting a sign, placing a sign in front of the city building, the main city building here in town. And
But was that doing that on our own, or was that was with them too?
with them, but they didn't have
Okay.
any money to contribute either, so it was kind of a moot point from that perspective. But
Maybe things have changed.
I got the feeling that maybe the money situation might be improving there.
okay,
So
That was with the city, and this is with chamber.
this
Yes.
is the
The
chamber.
Yeah.
city was talking about trying to do something, yeah.
And they were talking about working with the city as far as putting the sign potentially on or near that building.
Who was your contact with the chamber?
Tim McAlpine. It started with Doug Brecker, but Tim McAlpine's the one that I guess is spearheading that committee from the chamber. So he's the one that contacted.
Yeah, because they have to get it off that corner, so they've been talking to the city about bringing it over there. They're also talking to people, I guess Valley Bank owns the corner, so they've been talking to them about that spot. So they're trying to work something out around that corner.
We'd be really happy to put that on the tech agenda for the first tech meeting, to kind of, figure out how we can organize and, research that out a bit.
Yeah, just let me know, or I'll send you Tim's contact info, and you guys can reach out to him directly or how. Okay.
Which sign is that?
Well, it's gonna be a new sign. It used to be the marquee that they had used to be in the corner of what used to be Townsend Seeds. They had that marquee sign there for public events and whatnot. This one's gonna be a digital, that can be programmed, kind of like what we did.
Okay.
They have to remove the one on the corner of the marquee one.
It sits on railroad right away, and they have to pay so much, and they have to insure it because it's on railroad right away.
Yeah, we've run into some issues with it.
That starts out, I guess, conversation, I'm sure that they reached out to MDT as well, because they're gonna.
Yeah, all those things will change, yep.
Okay, very good. All right, elementary building project, reached out to those folks this morning. As you can see, the mega tower is finally up in the air. The ADA swing has also been installed, double checked all the clearances, they're good to go there. The swings have also been reinforced. That was a concern early on.
They let them back out.
The glider was also fixed, wood mulch has been brought in, so they're cleaning up the playground. This was this morning, so as of today, I think it is considered 100% done. Inside, the lockers have been installed for the 2 new classrooms. The LVT flooring is installed on the basement room, and they're waiting for, I think, a little bit more to complete the upstairs classroom. And then basically those will be good to go. They're completing the punch list items, those things that were identified that need touched up or fixed. And yeah, some outlets, covers, and a few things like that. All of that should be done. And there's someone coming from Vemco this week to program a thermostat for the RTU for those 2 rooms, which was identified as not working properly. And replacement of the heat wheels in the 2 RTU units on the elementary should be next week. So that project is winding down, and they should be done and gone here pretty quick. Successful project in my mind, as long, it seems like it's been going on for a long time. Very good. That's all I've got on that. If there's any questions? Okay, moving on, consent action items, minutes and warrants. Motion to approve unless someone's got some specific questions.
I'll move to approve the minutes and warrants as presented.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes and warrants as presented. Is there discussion?
Mr. Chair, just noticed in the minutes for the regular meeting from last time, and there's not there. I believe he was here for the thing. So, just we call those $5.
You got me.
That's about like this. That's looking through it. We're gonna start next one.
That was the only mistake, well,
It's all good, no big deal.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passed. Action items. Approve the addendums with Bulldog Bus Lines and a 5th-day contract. This is the approved one. Yeah, today. We didn't.
Okay, so in order to switch from our 5th day transportation information, the main thing here was to make sure that it was matching our information we submit to the state. So we needed to alter, we'll make an addendum to our current contracts so that everything's accurate, especially in case of audits and those kinds of things. We just want to make sure what we're reporting to the state is what we have in the books. So we did the addendums to change our current contracts to reflect the 4-day week, as well as add a contract for day 5 busing, for the 5th day busing. We're not 100% on the stops at this point in time. We're going to be opening registration for 5th day services soon and look at those addresses and see where all we need stops to be. But for that 100 miles a day for Fridays, we could go to the silos, to Townsend, and out to Duck Creek Fire Department, and maybe add in a few stops along that way, but that's about a 100-mile loop. Correct? So that's what we're looking at, and we really appreciated Jeremy working with us with Bulldog Bus Lines and giving us a bit of a break on this now that we're reducing and being flexible.
I will move to approve the addendums with Bulldog Bus Lines and the 5th day contract.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the addendums and with Bulldog Bus Lines and the 5th day contract. Is there any discussion?
There's just some areas where route, looking at this, it seems like that was carried through on the previous, so I don't think that was Casey's mistake.
Are these, no, it's just a misspelling
Yeah.
on the actual.
Oh,
The word Raiders.
oh yeah.
Word Raiders were.
You caught that. Wait, and then I never changed it. Thank you. She did tell me that, and I've never got it changed. Thank you. Yes, Borg. All right.
Is there a definition to this increase per year? So I was kind of carried across from the original contract. What does it mean per year? Is it a school year, or are we running 5% in 23 and then 24 5%?
Fiscal school year.
Okay. That's how I understood it to be, but I wanted to make sure that was clear. That is not this year and then again next year. Right away. Then the same comment you had made, Superintendent Edmund, about the minimum number of students at what point does it become cost prohibitive to actually run the bus on 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, we won't know that until we get some estimates, but I assume that, just so I'm clear, that all the 5th day programming come out of the 21st century grant, right?
Yeah, so we were able to work with Jeremy to come up with that cost for the 5th day contract that's in here and add that to the budget amendments for the 21st century grant. And they were on board with that. I followed up with Michelle yesterday even, so with OPI on that. That could also, another thing to think about is it could be used for field trips too, even if we didn't have a lot of kids we were picking up, but we wanted to take them out to do special things on those Fridays, we could put mileage towards that. So say we don't have enough kids to make it worthwhile to go out to Duck Creek, and that saves us however many miles, maybe we could take the kids somewhere.
And that'll be budgeted anyway to do some kind of field trips and so forth.
Is there a minimum that, Jeremy, is there a minimum that Bulldog Bus Lines needs as far as like guaranteed? So if we get half the students, you expect to be paid throughout the rest of the year, I would assume.
Yeah, what the contract states is a minimum 100 miles a day for the 30 days that the school requested for that. again, once we kind of get more of a grasp on how that looks, we'll work and adjust. Kind of like the spec bus has been, we'll make that all work and figure out how it plays in. So I guess to answer that, there was approximately 10,340 miles left over from the 23-day difference between 180 days and 157 days. So we kind of calculated that as part of, okay, if we break it up into 100 miles for the 30 days, we should be just fine banking those if it's not needed for the whole school year for special events and things like that. So we can use it throughout the whole time frame.
Good questions.
Any discussion? Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passed. Yeah, again, Jeremy, thank you for continuing to work with us on that and making those adjustments and everything. Making sure all the paperwork matches what we turn into the state, and that makes Casey's job life a lot easier when you're able to do that. Appreciate your time for that. Okay. Approve updated bus driver wages.
Okay, so you can see here in your packet, there's more details than in your information page on kind of the difference in pay from previous to current. So a few notes to make on this. And I'd like to add a slight addition if you feel comfortable with it. Otherwise, if we can put it on the next agenda. But one that I left off of here was Ed's maintenance pay rate. For maintenance, he's been paid $15 an hour for many years, and I would suggest we increase that. He's never asked for an increase, so I think that's something to consider. And then, as you know, we've had a really hard time getting bus drivers. The last couple of years, we've been able to pay them an additional stipend with COVID funds for additional cleaning and that kind of thing. So they were able to get, how much was it a trip? $30 a trip. Additional anytime they did a trip. So that was a way we were able to compensate the last couple of years. But this is what I'm proposing. They are not part of the classified or any of the other matrices. So this is just a matrix that I put together for a place for us to start. So you can kind of see where they're at. And on the information page, I showed you how many drivers we have at each level. So this is something I'd like to consider.
Is there a reason they're not part of the classified schedule?
They're just, I guess it's not a requirement that they are.
Right, I just figured for ease of consistency.
Actually, sometimes it's easier when they're not. Yes.
Well, and I think a big part of it is that they've never been a part of the classified union. Speaking as the vice president of the classified union, I suppose if they were interested in being a part of it, they could certainly approach us and we could look into adding them. As long as they're not in an administrative position where they're people that they're in charge of, they can certainly join. But it would be something that would need to be worked into negotiations and such.
So since we went through the pay increases for other staff, I thought this was an important one to look at. We couldn't really quite figure out where these previous wages were coming from, but kind of came up with I felt like a place where we need to start, obviously not at $10 an hour. We can't. I mean, people who are driving for us, the reality of it is that they just want to be a part, and we're really lucky to have awesome people that want to do that for our kids. But we are very short on drivers, and so if we can at least offer something reasonable, I was hoping to do so.
I move to approve the proposed driver hourly rate as presented.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the updated district driver wages as presented. Is there any discussion?
Just the comment, I guess, as far as maybe it's transportation committee, but broadly looking at all of our transportation needs as a whole, I feel like we kind of, and maybe it's just because my newness or nuance, but we kind of piecemeal where we can. Like we use some school buses and some contract. We use some contract services for drivers and some don't. And so I don't know what the right answer is. I'm just thinking from a broad picture planning standpoint to get to a place where we're comprehensively looking at, maybe that's part of the strategic plan, I don't know. But just a comment to, it seems kind of like we're band-aiding a lot of things when it comes to transportation. I don't like to do that. Maybe it's, again, I don't have a big enough picture of the whole view, but just a thought to try and look at it comprehensively and where our needs are next year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now as we grow.
Yeah, we have talked a little bit with Jeremy about the possibility of having activities under Bulldog bus lines as well. So that's a good point.
Do we need to, as you brought up, would we discuss Ed's wage at a later meeting? Is that?
Yeah, I think we probably should make that a different one.
On
just
the
'cause it
next
wasn't
meeting?
On this agenda,
Okay.
I think we need to wait, and we'll do that.
And thank you for all the driving you do as well, Ed. He was our driver this summer on the camp I got to go on. It was very fun.
How long have you been doing that?
I think I started in 99.
For years.
Well, thanks for your service.
So I expect a good evaluation.
That was what he was worried about when he was riding the bus with him.
Yeah. We really took out that one hill.
All right, any further discussion? Discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passed. Update substitute daily rates paid.
Same as the previous discussions we've had, we felt like it was important to try to keep our subs whole and keep their hourly rate similar to last year. With the more hours in the day, we thought it was important to raise the daily rate for our substitutes. We have some awesome substitutes that are very loyal and consistent and come when we call, and they mean the world to us. So we just wanted to make sure to keep that perspective and increase those rates as well.
I'll move to approve the updated sub rates.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the updated substitute rates of pay. Is there any discussion? Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passed. Approve trustee financial report. There's a lot to digest here. Hopefully everybody have an opportunity to look through it and ask some questions to Casey ahead of time. If you have any specific ones, if there's anything that you'd like to add tonight as far as description, or if anybody has any general questions for either superintendent or Casey at this time.
Just to your question earlier, Mr. Chair, about costing more than a 4-day to 5-day and the controversy around that, how did you shake out, relatively speaking, to that point?
Well, the trustee financial summary is basically a look back, whereas the budget report would be more of a look forward.
So in looking back, I guess, Susie, if you could just give us a gloss over areas where we met the budget, where we saved some money and were able to use those funds elsewhere, or is there any, I know we had a wish list going into the end of the fiscal year. How much of that wish list did we get executed, or maybe not at all? Or if you can just kind of give us general comments on that.
Okay.
How you felt the year went.
Yeah, so We spent more in substitutes than we were planning. That'd be an area to consider for that. We spent quite a bit in software. Our utilities were more than we had planned for with the new building. We were just kind of taking a good guess last year. So this year now we have actual numbers to use. They might be slightly inflated because of a lot of the testing that went on to get the system up to speed. So, and to get things balanced. So we had some really hot days on accident, those kinds of things until we got the system running correctly. So we're hoping we're on the cautious side this year, but we did put more money in the budget for our utilities. Our salaries did increase as we gained students and students with needs. So paraprofessionals that we needed to add for more support for those students. We had some major bus repairs last year that cost us a bit there. We had some additional fuel costs. As we all know, fuel was high. Our athletics have been running high the last few years, and that's something we're going to really try to hone in on this year. We also had some higher costs. We had a federal and a regular audit. So we had some extensive services costs, which, isn't up to us. It was, and that part of that is like the ESSER funds and those kinds of things. Everyone got triggered for those audits, and they are not cheap. We had some legal costs, as you know, with the FWP work and some of those things. So we had some increased costs in those areas. So those are the main ones that I think I'd like to point out. Are there any other areas that come off the top of your head?
I can tell you that we spent 100% of the general fund budget. There were no reserves, $74.91. We moved the remaining bit of money in that account to our compensated absence fund, which was the $4,500 which you'll see in there. So that was that one.
Can you talk about that real quick, what that is?
Compensated absences. That is a reserve account to allow for the payout of sick pay, vacation, and benefit packages for classified employees who term or retire.
And I will go into more detail on when we look at the budget for next year, why we have the numbers in there that we do. So that might help a little bit also. But one other thing to say is we were able to get through most all of the requisitions and get all of the items ordered that we needed. There's a few minor things that we had some good discussions about. Is this really important? Do we really need to spend the money on this? Because we had that over base funding that we received because we had such a large increase in students in 1 year. We got an additional around $100,000. So we were able to utilize that money to order the rest of our supplies and the things we needed for this coming school year.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
What are all the gray spots here? Are those empty or?
Well, we don't have, for example, I'm just looking at the balance sheet referring to Fund 78 self-insurance. We don't have that. So I think it's just non-applicable.
Okay.
Places you should not ever see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, if there's no more questions, I'm taking a motion to approve the financial report.
I'll move to approve the trustees' financial report for fiscal year 2023.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the trustees' financial report for fiscal year 2023 as presented. Is there any discussion?
Just a thank you to Casey and Susie and all the work you guys did to wrap this up in a short period of time and turn it around for a budget. Had a lot of moving parts to plan for, so thank you guys for your work on that.
And I'll add Pam's.
Pam, I was gonna say.
Pam was a very big part of that. Pam and Casey pretty much do the trustee financial summary. Yeah.
Yeah, if I can,
The budget goes to the other side that Susie has to take care of.
thank you. Yeah, I just want to say that I'm glad that you recognized them because the TFS is very technical. It opens in July and we have a state law to have it done by a certain date in August. We're way ahead of the curve, which is an amazing feeling. And it's just super detailed and takes a wealth of knowledge. And it was just incredible to work with Pam and Casey and just to see them working together and tackle it. And just, they were adamant that we were going to have it ready for tonight. And it was like, holy cow, and they did it. So really, really excited.
Discussion. Discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passed. Okay, adopt the final budget for 2023-2024. Now
Okay.
it's your turn.
All right. I have a slideshow just to go over a few more things and put some details out. So now we're planning for fiscal year 24.
I just wanted to make sure that you do have a copy in your book, but the only difference is that the county or the Department of Revenue came out with the taxable valuation rate. And so that's the change that you'll see on there you go, the addendum copy.
So you have the new and updated budget, line item budget for next year that's separate from your packet, and the new budget report that is updated because we got the taxable values on Monday, so we've got to redo everything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun.
So now we are looking at fiscal year 24. So just a few notes. The purpose is to set the budget as allowed by state law. We have less cushion than years previous. We have more of our budget going to salaries now, as you know, with our negotiation process. So things that we're going to monitor closely are those that are not involved in salaries: supplies, equipment, activities, travel, professional development, subscriptions, and we're just going to monitor, not saying that we're cutting out anything of, education importance, and we still want to make sure that we're funding all of these, but we're going to have to really prioritize and take a close look at things. As part of the strategic planning process and looking at budget going forward, I think it'll be critical to decide where our priorities are. Areas that need funding are, as we have heard from Ed, and purchasing buses coming up. And there has been a great desire to have another suburban or even more so a passenger van where we could take a large group and not have to have a bus driver or a CDL driver. So we could have a FFA teacher or the golf coach take the kids in a passenger van. You don't have to have a CDL, and we can fit, I believe, 14 students. So that is a big dream of ours. We cannot use transportation funds for that though, so that would be separate. Some other areas that I think would be really helpful is more employee housing, professional development and curriculum. We were able to use ESSER funds for. We got some really good new curriculum. We have done incredible high-level professional development school-wide, as well as being able to provide staff with the opportunity to go to national conferences and, or multiple in-state trainings. So going forward, we need to plan how we're gonna fund those areas once our ESSER funds are complete at the end of this school year. Areas that we have consistently spent quite a bit of money on include retirement incentives. We've kind of gotten in the routine of doing 2 for $15,000 a year, which is quite a bit. Facilities, we've spent a lot of money. We're in great shape now, for the most part, with our facilities. And our technology, we have a great tech team, and we have a lot of technology and a lot of software that is pretty costly. So those are areas that we have been spending quite a bit of our funds. And I just wanted to mention that I'm dedicated to finding ways to balance and use our funds so that we can make sure we strengthen our education system. Whenever we're looking at the budget, and we took a very, very close look this year at areas, you know, we need to add funds to, or we can take some funds from, we always think about our students first, of course, and education. So this is just a look at our A and B, which is part of what our funding is based off of, one of the key components. So we either can go with the prior year actual or the 3-year average. And we get to choose from each district. And the elementary EL, that includes the middle school students. And then we have the high school. So these are our numbers right now and the numbers previously. And then we're going to take a look at our federal funding here. So here's our OPI title allocations. So our title funds are really important to us. We use most of our title funds for salaries. Title I-A and school-wide. What we are allowed to do is roll all of our funds into school-wide, which is a practice that our district does. So that's an option that you have. Because we are Title I school-wide, we have enough students on free and reduced lunch, we're able to do that and roll those funds together. And we are able to serve all students with our Title I funds in that way. So we have title teachers, as you know, in our district, and these dollars go to those salaries. We also are required by law to provide family engagement with a portion of these funds and some supplies. So that is how we use our Title I funds. And we'll talk a little bit more, and I'll show you on the next slide a little bit about each kind of title program that we have. Title II is our professional development funding, and we roll that into Title I and use that for teacher salaries and those other items that I talked to you about. We could choose to keep Title II separate if we were able to still balance our budget salary-wise, and Title II is meant to be for professional development, so, or even keeping some of that whole going forward would be an idea. So then we have Title IV, and I will show you a little bit about each of these programs. So Title I, like we talked about, that's where we roll all of our funds into, and that is improving education programs in general. So it's very flexible, and that's why we roll all of our funds into that Title I piece. So there's subparts under migrant and neglected or delinquent. So under Part 2, so like Pine Hills and those have Part D. So when I worked at OPI, I would work with our schools that serve those students. They receive Part D funds because they have students in detention. So Title II, like I said, it's for professional development. We do receive a chunk of that, but we just roll it right into our Title I. Title III, English learners. We do not have enough English learners to receive an amount of Title III funds. Title IV, rural ed. we don't have any funds in there at this time. We don't meet that qualification. However, we did qualify for a REAP grant. Last year, we qualified for the REAP grant for like $1,200, and it wasn't worth the strings attached, as we've talked about before, and the paperwork that it would take. This year, we qualified for over $10,000. So I did complete that paperwork, and we just received our REAP grant for this year, which we can use towards paraprofessionals and more supports for our students. But it's not part of title, it's just another rural education grant that the federal government put out there, and this year was worth it to apply for that. I didn't include a lot of information on grants in here. We can go over that at the next meeting if that's something you guys are interested in. So Title IV, it used to be known, it came out in 1989 and was called the Safe Schools and Drug-Free Act, and it went away for a long time, and it just came back into play a few years ago. And we had quite a bit of money in Title IV, and it's gone down over the last few years since the Every Student Succeeds Act came out. But when it first came out, some schools did some really incredible things, and they changed it from just being like drug prevention. It was kind of used a lot on like the DARE kind of stuff back in the late 80s and 90s. And then when they reopened it, they broadened it to be able to be used for enrichment, safety, technology, and still kind of that whole child and drug prevention. And that is also one that we are rolling into Part 1, but some districts have kept it separate and done a different kind of program with it. And then we have homeless children and youth is another title program. We have received homeless grants in the past. We don't have one right now. I've been watching for one. And so then as we go into our budgeted funds versus our non-budgeted funds, a good way to explain this is our budgeted funds are ones that we levy money for, that we're going to be talking about, that are here on your budget report summary. Our non-budgeted funds are ones that we can earn money in other ways. So our general fund, as you know, it is based on the OPI budget and our A&B. Transportation is based on calculus. So all of these budgeted funds have a very technical formula and sheet that we have to fill in order to come up with our budget reports and pages that you guys see. So for transportation, that's why it was critical to have our bus routes and times solidified, because we have to enter all of that in order to get our transportation budget page done. Bus depreciation, we enter all the information on our buses in there, and then they say how much we can depreciate and how much funds we have there. We have 2 buses that are currently eligible for depreciation. So we have those in there. Retirement is a county-wide levy, so it's kind of confusing. When people look at their taxes, it looks like it's school retirement. It's actually all county-wide retirement. Tuition is based on one-to-one student costs and tuition. So this is a form that all of us work together on. I work with the principals to make sure I have all of the students that require an extra level of care with special ed. Anyone that requires additional services, a one-on-one para, is wheelchair bound, anything like that. We put those students and all of their needs into this tuition worksheet, the spreadsheet, and then it gives us a little bit over 50% of the cost of that student in tuition to help offset the cost of special ed for the district. So that's what the tuition fund is. It also takes into account the students that we have to pay for tuition at other facilities. So if we have a student that we say we cannot meet the needs of this student in our school district, or the state says that the student's needs are above and beyond what a public school can provide, and they are placed in a residential or treatment facility, then we receive a bill for those students. We pay for their education portion of the day. And those costs can also be calculated into our tuition worksheet. We do have those students. Adult ed, we have in the past consistently, Townsend has done 1 mil in order to keep an adult ed program going and funded. During COVID, we had $50,000 in there and we were not able to operate an adult education program. So we did not have any mills in that category for a couple of years. Last year was a robust program was ran, and that fund is down to a little over $30,000 from the 50 that we had in there previously. Technology is based on the levy that was set in the past that the community agreed on. So it's $50,000 annually that we ask for in technology. The flex is not permissive at this time. So that's one of those gray areas where it's just zeroed out actually on this one. And then debt services is based on debt liability, SIDs and fees. And the building reserve, you'll see on it's the next slide actually, that we had some in the past, but currently we do not have a way to permissively levy building reserve. So if you remember, like in 2008, they came through and did an audit of school facilities and saw that there was a lot of issues with school facilities across the state. So they did allow schools for a period of time to levy funds to work on their buildings permissively, so without going to vote. Right now, that's not an option. So you'll see that we don't have anything in the building reserve because it's not permissive at this time. So here's our budget overview. So before we got our taxable values, it's really interesting to me anyways. If we look on fiscal year 24, this was at 140.9 before we got our taxable values on Monday, and now it's down to 116.5 because the value of our mills changed drastically. And the last few years, the value of our mills were pretty steady, and we tried to keep the mills pretty flat for our community. So like I said, the bus depreciation, we are asking the max. As you know, we need to get some new buses. Our tuition is high. We have some really high needs. We continue to get more and more students with high needs as our population grows. And so we are, in higher need in that area. And technology, we're asking for the same that we always do. And adult ed is really the only area that I would recommend the board flex, if anywhere at all. Like I said, we have over $30,000 in that budget, but we did spend approximately $20,000 last year and had a really great adult ed program that the community benefits from. As you can see, the 2 years before we did zero in adult ed because, like I said, during COVID, we were operating that adult ed program. And then back here in building reserve, this is when the state was allowing districts to levy some funds in the building reserve, but that's not an option at this time. Any questions so far? So then we go to the line item budget. And on this page, I just put the final totals that get us to our general fund total budget there on the bottom. But it is detailed in the line item budget packet that looks like this that you were just passed out. A few areas changed this week just slightly, so we made some last minute adjustments. And I can go through it in a bit more detail here. Let me open. out of my. Okay. My personal laptop's a touch screen, so I always get mixed up between the two. Okay, so I have some notes on mine if you have any questions about specific line items. Substitutes, we did reduce. Last year, we spent over $100,000 on subs. We're really hoping with the 4-day week that goes down. We also still had some COVID and some of those kinds of things last year. The last couple of years, subs were quite a bit higher because of that. So we're hoping that does go down, and we were able to use ESSER funds to offset those costs the last couple of years. One of the areas that we have changed is the retirement incentives. One going down to 2 at $10,000 would be my recommendation. Retirement incentives, I think we've talked about this before, but they're really supposed to be utilized if the district has the money to fund them, and if you're top heavy as a way to do that. We are top heavy with our staff. However, we don't have a ton of funding, and the retirement incentives do actually end up costing us quite a bit more than that $10,000, as we've discussed before. So that's what I would be comfortable with at this time. Okay, so in some of these areas where you see ESSER, we have very small amounts because we still have ESSER money designated to help cover those funding streams right now. This is kind of an interesting one. Townsend does offer free lunches to staff that work in the cafeterias. That supervise lunch and some of those different things. This software on this line item is for the evaluation software program that we have and the frontline subsystem that we have, substitute system that calls our subs. And then they're entered in there. So then we go down to counselors. It's pretty basic. Same with librarians. Part of my salary comes out of transportation, as well as the clerk's salary. We have professional support services here. The elections cost us a ton for the county to run for us. So we pay quite a bit, like $18,000, I want to say.
The election itself this last year cost us just shy of $14,000.
14, okay. And then we have about 10 in there for
Legal fees, yeah. We are going to have another election this May.
Yes. Montana School Boards Association, that's for all of your memberships. We have our principals, clerical. We do get some money from grants that are written for indirect costs. It's very minimal though, and any grant that we do write, we need to be conscious of the fact that it does take quite a bit of accounting. And so, and most grants only allow you to take a certain percentage for indirect costs to pay towards the clerks for the financial management of those grants. There we have our auditor, our Black Mountain payroll software, typo. We have our Infinite Campus costs, and that's money that we have from the state line item that is specifically required to be spent on that. We have our, okay, so this is our operations and plants, so our custodians. We are reducing Mr. Riddle's hours. He has a lot of hours banked up, and he is starting to look at retirement. So we're hoping to reduce his hours this year and work on a transition plan for him to try to get someone mentored into his position. And so that's why we have the sick leave and termination money here, as well as the compensated absences fund that could potentially be used. That's why we put some money in there. This is the annual price for the gym floors to be redone. These are the increased utility costs that we changed. We have the training room for the wrestling program. And then I'm recommending, you'll see later in the agenda, that we end our lease for the rental, the storage rental that we have with the Cox family, because we have everything from our obsolete item sales in there. So we've already tried to sell it garage sale style. And then we haul it to the storage shed, and it's like really old desks and things like that. So I did put a little bit of money in here for us to pay for one more month of that rental. And then it is gonna cost us a bit to dispose of those items at the dump, so.
Is that the train station rental for the wrestling league? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, that's what.
Oh,
No, the storage is next to the coffee cup.
yeah.
No, but these are both in
The
this line
train.
item. Yes.
Okay, how much is the train station
$4,000.
per year?
Several months. It's one season, one wrestling season.
So it's how many months?
Like three,
Yeah, I'd say
probably around.
4-ish, yeah.
3 to 4.
Okay, that's just an annual year-by-year deal.
Yeah, it's kind of thought it was interesting. I know they really love it over there, but when we built the building, I kind of thought it was interesting. We didn't, put that in our facility center. But I've been over there, and I know that they love the space and use it a lot during that season.
I know before we started doing that, it's almost impossible to fit all of the winter sports, junior, middle school, high school, on a schedule where we can rotate gyms and spaces. Like, it's literally impossible. It's crazy. We have people practicing at 6 a.m. to make it work and all these other things. So I know that it alleviated that situation just a ton. And they also use it for little guy. They use it for a lot of different things. And I think like the little guy programs help pay for some of the rest of the rental of that for the year. That's not school use. I know that quite a system worked out so that everybody can share it and use it and help pay for the costs. But yeah, it's not cheap.
So supplies, we still have a lot stocked up from the ELC grants. I don't know if we still have a whole roll of paper towels in the bus barn or not, or where they are now, or what all we still have, but what's that?
That's where they're at.
Yeah. I was like, buy as much as, like, what can we buy that, will stay? So, replacement parts, we have had a few issues with lawnmowers and weed whackers and things lately. For minor equipment that might be a little shy, but that's what we're looking at there. So we have our copier lease. Then we go to salaries. We did move one special ed teacher to be paid by Medicaid instead of the general fund, which we have the funds to do. And we have our paras there. We have our prickly pear fee for being part of the prickly pear co-op. So as you know, we're part of the prickly pear co-op. They have a special ed director there that we call on for certain situations. They have, I sit on the board with the prickly pear co-op. I'm trying to get them to get a behavior specialist that we can all share. We have a speech path through them. We have an occupational therapist through them, a psychologist through them. all those different services that as a district we would be able to afford on our own. East Helena is probably the largest district in our co-op, but we have quite a few schools in our region. So, let's see, we're not way over, that's why I'm missing my categories, there we go. Now we're gonna get into our CTE programs. We have the teachers, we have supplies at $2,000. With the Carl Perkins grants that fund those programs, they can't spend money on things that are, what's the word I'm looking for?
Consumables.
What's that?
Consumable.
Consumable, thank you. Yes, they can't spend money on consumables. So like the wood and that kind of thing is what we need to provide with their supply budget. They combine the tools and the safety equipment and all of that with their Carl Perkins funding. So something new with Indian education since the state lawsuits, this is changing. Indian Ed for All is part of our general budget and it was always just lumped in. We now have to do a separate accounting and budget reporting with our Indian Ed for All funds. So we have to very specifically budget our Indian Ed for All funds this school year and earmark every dollar that is spent for that and prove that it was spent towards Indian Ed for All very specifically. In the past, in our accreditation report, there was like 2 check boxes. One, did you provide, Indian for All education to students, and Indian Ed for All education to staff check mark, and then give us a brief explanation of how. And now it's actually a whole budget and separate report that's going to be required. So that's new. I'm actually really excited about it and some of the opportunities we'll have with staff and field trips and different things like that though. Then we get into student activities and transportation. We're going to try to, get both teams on one bus as often as we can and those kinds of things to minimize transportation costs. And an area, like I said, that we'll have to pay attention to is our athletics supplies. We've been spending $30,000 or more a year, and that's just not sustainable. We're gonna have to take a look at that. Uniforms are really expensive. The pads for the posts are really expensive, just all those kinds of things add up. I know a wish list item that we haven't ordered yet is the ice maker for the training room, and it's about $4,500. And food services, we don't have a lot in here because our food services budget's really healthy right now. We actually got kind of a warning on our budget reporting because we have quite a bit of funding in there. So an example of how we're going to make a change because of that is we're not going to have the custodians in the lunchroom this school year for a couple of reasons. I'm hoping we can hire another KitchenAid and they can do more of the wiping things down throughout the lunchtime. We have funds in that area that we can spend that wouldn't impact our general fund budget. And also, of course, they talked to the kids and they helped out a lot, but we had a couple of custodians in there for 2 hours when they could have been doing, more maintenance or deep cleaning or those kinds of things, or we can shift their hours to Fridays now when we're not gonna have students here and they can do more major projects. So we're gonna try to do something different in the lunchroom, for example, with that.
Susie, I'm sorry, I got to alibi back up on athletics.
Yes,
The supplies you're talking about, it's not sustainable. Did you say 30,000 we spent last year?
we spent quite a bit over 30,000 last year. I don't give the exact amount, Casey.
I do, let me look that up.
One of the kind of issues we had last year was that it wasn't, I don't know if it all got put in the right fiscal year. There was a little bit of transfer there.
And that's taken into consideration with the booster club does as well, so it's just.
It's amazing how much just seriously, like the training room supplies, the medical supplies, it is so expensive, it's crazy. And then the equipment needs, as we know, any kind of equipment is. The booster goes great, they help offset a lot of that. And the meals and the travel and the uniforms are just unreal. I cannot believe how expensive uniforms are, they're crazy, crazy expensive.
The exact dollar amount was $31,491.51.
That would be everybody though. That's middle school, high school, all programs.
And part of our gate fees, does any of that go back into this fund at all, or activity cards?
I was into the activity account that we use to pay for meals and hotel rooms and just general throughout the year items that come up that we need to purchase that aren't like regular yearly requisitions. A lot of this is just like our springtime requisitions for the fall, so like whatever teams are on the uniform rotation, what other supplies they need, all the paint we use, just the paint for the football field for every home game, adds up, all that paint, all of that stuff that we have to keep doing every year. It doesn't, last many years. And the refs, that's a huge chunk of our activities. Yeah. In fact, that's a large portion of our activities are the refs.
So will we be able to cut it that much?
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to take a look at uniforms. I know we have very nice looking uniforms, and I was able to get us a grant for the new football helmets. We have really awesome football helmets that were almost $18,000 that we saved from not having to take it out of the budget. So as football uniforms, not to mention the helmets are crazy expensive. So, we've been doing what we can, but I know we just ordered volleyball uniforms because they were on the rotation. But I thought our uniforms were pretty good. So, we try to keep it on a rotation so that everyone, is regularly upgraded. But I don't know if we're gonna get to a point where the district has to add another year in that rotation cycle, or.
I like Joe Horner and Charles are really looked hard. Reconditioning the football helmets mandatory, has to be done so they can play. Holy cow, huge expense. And so I know they shopped around and did a lot of work trying to find better prices for reconditioning, and they saved quite a bit this past year on that.
Yeah, with the new helmets, we didn't have as many to recondition, but our shoulder pads were in pretty bad shape. So the needs vary.
What happens to the old uniforms?
So typically, we've always had basically a hand-me-down structure that and that's part of what happens when rotations get skipped, is you get in a situation where now you've got, like, say, a junior high and it's got, just nothing, and mixing and matching. And so in the past, I think we still do it, is we try to pass down those uniforms to JV ones we're doing down in the C squad. So on until just basically their life cycle is completely gone.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
so
we've had to basically redo junior high ones because you're running the problem that they don't fit. You're using ones that used to be varsity uniforms, putting them on 7th graders. So those, a lot of times, and we do buy, I guess, more budget-friendly options for junior high things. But, yeah, they get used. Their typical life cycle, I'd say the average uniform probably sticks around for 15, 20 years before they're, outsourced somewhere else.
anytime you take a uniform and times the time about the average of, say, 30 varsity uniforms I'm using that just a, round number, adds up fast.
80, that's the 80 salary, and the stipend, that's all the coaches' stipends, is that correct? Yeah, that's all I have. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So then we just get down to our totals. Are there any more questions about the budget before you are ready to make a motion?
Counselor, is that one or two counselors?
2. So that was one area that changed. We have not received an application from a licensed counselor. So you'll see on the budget, we have a positive behavior coach on there. And we're still working on an offer that's on the table for that. And I'm working with the union on that because they're not a teacher. They have a social work degree. And a lot of the districts are doing this now, going to like a behavior coach or school culture and climate coach or something like that. And we're gonna have to shift duties slightly. So we'll work with Mr. Schnicken and this person on that if we're able to hire them. So they don't necessarily fall on the teacher's pay matrix. So I called Jenny, the union rep, to see what her thoughts were on that, and how we can do that. It's basically going to be a new kind of position because we don't have a licensed counselor. Licensed counselors are more expensive, so we took a little bit of funds out of there for the second counselor that we'll have for this school year. So they would still teach the curriculum in the classrooms, that the second step curriculum on manners and getting along and all those kinds of things. And then they would still do kind of what we call like friendship groups where they get students together that, maybe need some practice at sharing or playing with others or working through things that it looks different at every grade level. And then our students that need like a one-on-one, someone to talk to if there was a death in the family or something like that, we would have our licensed counselor meet with them.
How busy are our counselors throughout the year?
Very busy.
And where I'm going with this is where mental health is in this day and age and all the issues we read about on paper. Something strategically, if this board wants to consider, do we want, and this is relying on the administration's input too, is do we want to look at more counselors for the size of our school? And what does that look like? I don't know. Don't have to be answered now, I just wanted to get everyone to start thinking about that.
No, it's a great question. Our school psychologist is super busy, and they do kind of a different level of that work also. So she's critical, and we keep her very busy. We have her quite a lot most of the time. She spends like one half day in White Silver and we get her the rest of the time. So that is a really important component as well. So she's the only one we have trained in threat assessment, for example. So we're working towards getting more of our team trained in that so that she isn't the only one and doesn't get bogged down on that if she has critical things to be working on. And our counselors are very important. Like I said, the problem we're having, and we talked a great deal about this at the school administrators conference Sherry and I were at just a couple weeks ago. The problem is that we don't have school counselors out there these days. Whether it's just because of it being a challenging job or, private practice, they're able to make a lot of money these days. They're still on our teacher salary schedules in the schools. A lot of districts in different states now have special ed teachers and school counselors on a different pay matrix than teachers, than like classroom teachers. So that's something to think about. Because they do have additional education and they do have a higher rate of pay. That's why I said we reduced that a bit, knowing that we won't have a licensed counselor. But it's a great need. Whitehall, I talked to their superintendent in great detail. They haven't had one for 5 years. A couple of the other superintendents I talked to said that they are growing their own, and the state has opened an apprenticeship program. So if we do get one of these folks and they're a good fit, we can sign them up to the apprenticeship program so they could be working towards their counseling certificate. Yeah, and they take them every September into that program. It's a newer one, but we're really excited about it. And that's what some of the superintendents have said, that, you know, the only way they've been able to get a counselor is by finding a teacher that they think would be really great at it and helping them through the program to get their counselor certificate. Same thing with mental health in general. There's a lot of opportunities, and even some that you sent in your email today, some of the programs, and like CSC teams in school, where you can have a contract with like YBGR, Yellowstone Boys and Girls Club, or some of those to come in and bring a behavior coach in and a therapist. But the problem is they can't find staff in our communities either. Like we in the community wide, at the community meetings that we've been at, you know, our hospitals had a hard time keeping a therapist. We can't find a therapist either. Even someone in private practice, when we have students that are in great need, we usually have to set them up in Helena with Sugar. So if we could hire someone, there are some different avenues. And we have talked about, you know, contracting with one of those CSCT programs, but like I said, a lot of the other districts that have said, yeah, I mean, we were excited about it, and they were able to set us up with a behavior coach or something like that, but they weren't able to bring a therapist on in our area, so it really didn't work out.
We do need them.
Yes.
And like, it's not just the
You're correct
school.
in assuming that
Yeah.
they're overwhelmed.
So
It's not just the school, our
state,
community.
yeah, the state ratio is for counselor is 400-1, which is terrible, and we've been trying to get changed for years, but we don't even have the staff to meet that. Our districts statewide don't have the staff to meet that ratio, or the counselors out there don't even meet that ratio anyways. So we are within the state limits of having the two, but it would be great to have, you know, someone that could really focus elementary, and then, you know, more upper elementary, middle, and high school, where they could do more of the career and technical coaching. And so career coaches are another avenue that people are branching out and doing something different. If they can't find a licensed counselor, or in addition to a licensed counselor in the high schools, they're hiring career coaches to do more of that, like on-the-job workforce type opportunity. And then I do have a meeting set up with one of the gals from the state, Mary Heller, that's helping run that program. Yeah, definitely a big advocate for mental health, and I think we really need it. We do have a grant right now to provide with SAMHSA that provides signs of suicide training to our middle school and high school students. There are some different opportunities out there. We have a gal coming to our September board meeting that's going to share more information on mental health and suicide prevention opportunities that she can provide to the district through county services. You guys have anything to add? I know that they would take another counselor each.
Or something along those lines.
I know that our counselor last year felt very spread bereavement.
Same nice.
Anything else? All right.
I guess I do have a couple questions. looking back at the budget versus, what we started out with last year. Some of the numbers you were able to shift. The salaries, the instruction one, though, I'm a little concerned on the salary for the aides. That number dropped quite a bit from where we started last year.
So I believe that is because with Pam's help, we wanted to make sure that they are in special ed. So a large portion of the aides are in special ed. And that is so that at the end of the year, we don't have to move them, which she had to do this year. Because we are required to meet maintenance of effort. So we are required to spend a certain amount on our special ed services every year. We cannot go below that without a description to the state of why. And we cannot go much above that without a description of why. Like we got a new student that had a very high level of need. Or we had, 3 students leave that were in great need. So we actually have to file paperwork if we do not maintain that MOE. So that's something that we monitor all year. And so let me look here. Is that reflective on here?
Well, yes and no. I mean,
Okay.
there is a shift of those dollars, but they're not commensurate to one another.
Okay.
Some other things you'll notice is that we do have those extra grants that will pick up paras.
The REAP grant is going to cover one para, that one,
The ELC grant one.
and the ELC grant is covering a para. So those are a couple that are taken out of here. But that's definitely something we can look at. Last year we had some paras in kindergarten that I'm hoping we won't need as much of with our smaller classrooms. Yeah.
At the moment, we have the same number of paras, we think, going into the year.
No, right now they cut it down by one, I think.
Yeah, the shift in the salary aides, you took out a little over 190,000, but you only added about 70,000 back into that special education.
The FTE should have only been reduced by 1 paras. So I can follow up with Pam on that and confirm that it's just because we were taking them out of other funds besides the 1 FTE.
I know you mentioned the Medicaid on the one, so that probably is not included in that calculation. That's just one area. that just-
Oh, and tuition. We are paying, yes.
But I guess that's where my question is leading, what you're proposing for the tuition levy. And I agree with, the desire to keep those mills as flat as possible, but we also have to cover, those costs that we created essentially through, the salary increases.
Yes.
And I guess, are you gonna touch on that, the mill sheet a little more too?
I sure can. We are requesting the max that we can according to that worksheet on tuition. Like I said, we put every detail in there, like whether we have an equipment like a changing table, we can put those kinds of costs in that spreadsheet for those students. We put all of those costs in there for each student, and then it shows us how much we can charge, and we get a total. And it's like for a student that costs $20,000, we get 11, for example. We get just slightly over 50% of the cost in tuition.
And then that substitute number is the other one that gives me a little concern. I know we're hoping, we're speculating that the 4-day school week is going to cut that down, but if it doesn't, there's a $30,000 discrepancy, from what you said we spent last year versus what we have budgeted,
Mm-hmm.
which is a substantial amount if it doesn't change. Just wondering where we will address that if it has to.
It's a good question. So we did go through and flag these areas that we're gonna monitor closely. So we would have to make shifts as we go in those areas if needed. Supplies are really one of the only areas we have left to work with in our budgets. Trying to think of where else. Oh, obviously we have, we don't want to, could charge more para wise. We could charge two, if we need a para, to go back to that one, we can use Medicaid. We do have the flex funds and those other funds if we are in dire need and things don't shake out. And then we would, obviously that wouldn't be sustainable, but we would need to make changes for the next year.
What flex funds are those?
So we have,
Excuse me.
Yeah.
That email I sent out a while ago on the fence, I talked about those 3 funds that we utilized to finish off the 2 rooms, 2 classrooms, and, talked about the money that potentially is available. But those are funds that are not considered, in this general fund discussion.
we also have miscellaneous funds, kind of just those backup accounts. I really don't, like I said, there's not a lot of area to trim in here. Another option is to remove the retirement incentives. A lot of districts don't regularly offer retirement incentives. It's usually for a purpose. I know that people feel very strongly about it here, and I understand that. Like, I've worked really hard. I deserve that opportunity for that retirement incentive. It makes a huge difference in people's retirements. It's kind of like honoring them for their service.
That's a one-time buyout though, right?
Mhm. But the reality is, it's just not something that districts usually get in the habit of promising. It's usually a decision made if money allows.
But I will say from the teacher's perspective, it is very important to them.
Oh yeah, huge.
Talking about not doing it, you will get some attention.
I always
from
do.
those-
Every year I say this and I get the
You don't
same
have to say
feedback.
it, you just whisper that a little bit, and you will have some discussion with those teachers that are approaching that, because it does make a difference to them, and they find that very valuable. So I caution us on removing that totally. I
Yeah.
realize if it comes to decreasing it, that may be something we have to do. But
Yep. And honestly, we always budget a little bit high on the high end for certain things. We're hoping, there could be a cushion in utilities and some of these other components. And it's just one of those things where we did budget really tight though, and we're gonna monitor really closely, especially these particular areas that fluctuate. And we might have to have those hard conversations, like we can't spend any more in supplies. We are over our
have those
sub.
discussions been started?
Oh yeah, with staff. Yep. Definitely. They've gotten some serious emails about copying this year and some of those things. And those are just conversations that, and we started those at the end of last school year. They were each given $400 to order supplies with for this current school year. In the past, it was kind of just wide open. So things are definitely getting tight. I will say, I know it's different than some years in the past, but I still feel like we're doing pretty good comparatively. I mean, all of our neighboring districts were required to run a voted levy in order to come near balancing their budget this year, and we did not have to do that. I think that's because we've been really fiscally responsible. We did not use our ESSER funds to pay teacher salaries, which are, that's why a lot of the districts in the state had to RIF, large numbers of staff. We used those funds wisely on our HVAC systems and those kinds of things that put us in a good place building wise. Like I said, our facilities are in good shape, those kinds of things. So, it's tight. We don't have a lot of wiggle room, but we're also not in a bad situation. But I want, people to think seriously about what we're ordering and why, and just really think about those things this year and kind of plan and prioritize what's important going forward. We're also hoping our A and B will continue to keep catching up, right? So it's a year behind. Our A and B's follows a year behind on how we get funded. So next year we should get even more funding based on A and B. And I don't know if they'll do another overbase for those districts that had a large increase in funding this year or not. There's a lot of talk about some new ESSER funds that are coming for technology. I know Joe and I have been talking about and watching for one of those funding streams. Of course, we'll keep eyes on different grants that we can write for that will help offset general fund costs, but we don't ever want to rely on those. Like I said, we didn't do that with ESSER, which is why we're in better shape than some of our neighbors.
If we need to, we can also implement auditing features on our copying and really tying people to a specific number. We have the ability to do that. It's a matter of setting what that number looks like, or setting a budget for that stuff. I've gone through from that side, from that perspective, and put signage at each one of the copiers indicating what they cost so that people are more aware. And then also I've given direction to send certain copy jobs to our most efficient copier that costs us the least amount of money. And we can certainly put auditing in place to forward anybody over a certain copy amount to that less expensive printer, if need be as well, at least from a copy and print standpoint.
The one thing is, I guess my concern is, because this is the second or third time we've talked about saving money with the copy machine, you can kind of educate me or us on the issue, because I don't want to be in a position where we're putting restrictions on our teachers to teach our kids either. Is this, are they abusing the copying machine, or is this just a matter of, I guess you can kind of fill us in what the challenge is, because I don't want to hamstring our teachers.
No, I don't either. Honestly, it's not a huge money. We're not talking about enough money to pay for another teacher or anything. It's not going to be that huge of an impact or great of savings at the end of the day. We do have certain staff that print a lot more than others. Maybe they have reasons. But we do know that last year with our new programs, they had a lot of initial printing to do to get their programs up and running. A lot of the things they laminated and things, so they have them for the next few years. We're expecting a natural reduction next year. I know school-wide, we've worked really hard to go digital. I know most of the high school teachers do Google Classroom and those kinds of things. So I don't think it's going to end up having to be like a punitive kind of situation. We're just trying to bring more attention to it and that kind of thing. So, we definitely want to provide everything that the teachers need to operate their classrooms. We have very well stocked. One thing that we did is go to having a centralized stock room, especially with their new classrooms. They don't have quite as much cabinetry as they did in the old school. It's more, aesthetically designed. And so they have those really nice work rooms. So we have well-stocked work rooms that have all the paper, all the markers, all the things that they could need for crafts and all of that, and centrally located so they can just go get what they want. So instead of each teacher ordering their own construction paper, markers, We keep it all stored in the stored rooms. Ms. Hartman and her team spent a lot of time setting those up, and then Allison watches closely. We're getting low on purple paper, and so that way we were able to reduce waste and like glue sticks drying up before they got used, that kind of stuff. So school-wide, we've made some different changes like that. I can tell you from the administrative point of view, we reduced staff. We reduced one FTE in the elementary office, and Donna, that works as an administrative assistant and does all different kinds of amazing things for Casey and I, is now going to only be with us 2 days a week and is going to be with Mrs. Hartman 2 days a week. So we're cutting FTE in both of our offices administratively as well. So we're all pitching in and doing what we can to utilize the great people we have the most efficient manner we can. Like I said, I didn't think it was an efficient use of our custodians' time to be in the lunchroom, those kinds of things.
Our other copiers, yeah, we had 2 new programs last year for elementary, our grammar and our reading, so it was a lot for them to bring in, and so there's a lot of extra copying and stuff. And so this year we'll have a couple more classrooms, because we've had that classrooms, so we had to buy more curriculum, but it's not gonna be like it was this last year.
Did you have any more questions, Jason?
No.
Line
no.
item wise?
And I know that, you worked with Pam on that and, accounting for that. There's several of the budgeted areas that did increase, and I'm guessing that those were just shifted around in there. Something I wanted, it was a big number, so it jumped out that,
Yeah.
Allen had gone down. I just wanted to make sure that
We can get,
account.
I can work with her and Casey to get you a more detailed report on paras and how we're paying for them. And for anybody watching, we would love to have some paras. So we're going to be recruiting hard for paras before school starts. We have a couple that are not returning, so we really need some paraprofessionals.
But those dollars are already accounted.
Yes. We also have an ad out for, the vacancies will be posted tomorrow, but we're also hoping, we put playground aid on there again, just to allow maybe for someone that is willing to come for a certain part of the day, morning or afternoon or lunchtime, and play with the kids on the playground and get paid for that. Maybe doesn't feel comfortable doing the, working specifically with students or those kinds of things like a para, but maybe would be willing to do that. That would help us out a ton too.
Well, if someone wants to volunteer, you can come volunteer, hang on the playground anytime. Need bodies out there anytime. Especially with the towers up.
So this might be a small dollar amount, but it's something that prior to me being on the board, and after Jason got on board, we had a conversation about postage. Is there somewhere we can reduce there? I mean, I don't know if it's common every time to send out the entire board packet through postage in some instances, or if that was just.
Yes, we would love to reduce postage. We would like to have a Chromebook for each of you to review your packet in the meeting, or at least print it. Like, we could print the meat and potatoes of it, and then you could have the Chromebook for I could have the policies loaded on there or whatever. That would be phenomenal. If we had a board that was prepared to move that way, we could still have a packet available for you to pick up or send it home with your students or something like that. Those are all ideas we've definitely talked about. We did greatly reduce postage. I do get complaints still to this day, but I don't know if you remember the flyers that used to go out from the school district in the mailbox. It cost a ton of money, especially with how much postage costs now. We did do away with those, and we do post things online. We do make posters sometimes to put around the community for things that maybe some online folks wouldn't see, but they would see like a poster in the grocery store or something like that. So we've tried to keep that in mind, but and the newspapers have been great. working with us. So that's been really helpful. If we have community information or job postings, anything cool coming up, Nancy will put it in the paper for us. And Mr. Ravendall's been helpful with that as well. So that helps a ton now that we have the papers willing to work with us on that. But we got rid of those. Those mailers were thousands of dollars. So any way we can keep reducing postage, we're all about it.
That's what we're trying to go, we've got a lot of stuff we're going digital too, like in the elementary, trying to go a lot more digital, so we're getting away from all the paper copying too with that kind of stuff.
I know the athletics packets that you guys got the last couple of days, Mr. Odell came and talked to me about how can we get these digital. So, yeah.
The accounting office is doing the same. We're trying to go less and less postage.
I can pick up my board packet.
Me too.
Like I said, I know it's a small amount, but
It makes a difference.
I think it's all can add up.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's somewhere, at least from the board, we can move that direction possibly. And we can do our part too.
Yep. I'm not opposed to going with the digital, you know, I know boards do everything on computers too. I'm kind of a paper person, I got every board packet I've ever had.
I don't know how he keeps it all straight in that bag.
Because I do
But
like to go back and check things and read, you know, the trustees' financial summaries, all those I can compare from one year to the next, but that can all be done digitally too. But yeah.
I think it's nice to have, like I said, at least the meat and potatoes of it in paper. I do like to make notes from you guys on mine and things like that. But maybe the larger things we could have, not like just have digitally.
All right, is there any more questions on the budget? If not, a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve the final budget for fiscal year 2024 as presented.
Been moved and seconded to approve the final budget for fiscal year 2024 as presented. Is there any discussion?
Just thank you. Yeah, definitely. A lot of work to get from where you were to this point. And thank you to all of you who got us this product. You know, it's a learning progress, learning process we'll have to figure out as we go, especially as a new school structure, data structures.
Yeah, thank you. It was honestly a pleasure this year, and I had an awesome team to work with. We started, way back in April, and it was so nice to feel confident in the numbers and feel prepared and have the opportunity to learn from Pam and work with her this year on, just the historical knowledge even of what's been done in the past and why and some of those different things. So it was a really great experience for me. Thank you for your support.
I have one question. Is there, so in building the budget, the timeline that goes with it, we kind of came on towards the end of that process. I just was wondering if there's a way to get in front of it so that we know, for example, with the certified pay raises that happened this year, how that would affect overall budget planning for the August meeting. Because there's decisions that are made in April, May, June, July that affect the budget. We don't see the budget until August. And so I feel like I don't know, I feel a little bit, maybe it's just, again, newness, but if we can look at those decisions as a budget topic, that would help make those decisions more informed, I guess.
That's a great question. So one thing that we can do like quarterly or something to that nature is look at our budgeted versus actual. So we can look at this line item and see if we're on target, like utilities wise or substitute wise. Every couple of months, a check-in to monitor where we're at and if we're meeting our targets. The part that makes it hard about doing too much is we don't know our budget until those numbers come out from the state. What would you say
Our
date-wise?
budget data doesn't come out till first part of May. And that,
And that's kind of
Yeah.
the state's like estimated guess to us. So, yeah, we can get started then, for sure. But it's hard before that to know. And then especially like so when depending on where our legislature falls too, there can be a lot of funding changes coming out of the legislature that can impact things. So it depends on how all those things fall. When we have those kind of estimates from the state, so we know how much money we have to work with.
Yeah, like I said, I feel like maybe again, it's probably newness, but I feel like a lot of even the decisions to increase the school lunch price rate, that kind of stuff, you're coming at it with half of the information on the fiscal need, on the fiscal impact.
Right.
It's just tough for me to make an informed decision on that without having a full picture of how it impact the budget overall.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think you guys working with me, helping me monitor these different line items and talk about it through the year about, we're going over in subs. How are we going to handle that? I think talking early and often about those retirement incentives, if, making sure we're going to be able to hold those, or areas we would have to flex funding or other funding streams we could use or might need to use. All those conversations, I think if we stay on top of those throughout the year, we'll be in a lot better place when it comes to the end of the year.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that sometimes the sequence of things isn't in the right order. The negotiations committee, of course, was Todd and I originally, that, I spent most of the time with Casey and Pam trying to get a projection, really looking at the actual versus reality to come up with, a best guess, best estimate on what we could offer the teachers. And so we did that, and Todd and I discussed that, and then later got transitioned to him. But it is at that point, you literally are on a best guess and trying to project where your A and B is gonna go, knowing that you are a year behind, so you are kind of using that information as you go into that. But it is, not everything goes in the right order, unfortunately.
I do believe the tightness of of this budget is a testimony to us honestly offering the teachers as much as we possibly could.
Yeah.
I will say that.
We went over it, and, I sent Pam, numerous projections, 1%, 2%, 3%, all of those different things, trying to give them the most that we could. But it is still, it's not perfect. Even at this point, it's not perfect, but.
Yep, we knew that was gonna
This year not being
be hard.
a legislative year, we do want to start that negotiation process earlier in the winter, so we'll get that done much sooner than we did this year. Again, the 4-day school week kind of threw some of that stuff and made Casey and Pam's life a little difficult for a while because they were waiting for information. So we do want to get that all rolling much sooner than we did. But good question. Comment. All right, any further discussion?
Couple quick things for me, and this I think will help a lot of us, this is a great product. I love this. If we could just have one more column to show what the actual was from last year for comparison when we go through this next year. That way I think it'll help engage and spur those questions like, hey, Jason picked up on, he's been here for a few years, but I think that'll help us, new board members kind of see and spur some dialogue anyway. Second thing is, these other funds, are they pretty much all fixed? Is there any flexibility in like the transportation, like the reserve? Can we go through those after this, or is this motion just for the general budget?
It's for
No, it would include those.
It's for both, yep. So, to your first comment, I have done that in years past, and I think I shared one with the board earlier this year that showed like 3 years in a row. There were some discrepancies and some funds that had to be shifted around, that we learned through the audit process and things. So I just didn't feel like it was very accurate, and I didn't want it to cause more confusion. Now that we have things set up really well and we have our budgets aligned, I think I'll be able to do that for you next year, and it should be apples to apples. So on the budget report, the areas that we can discuss are, so transportation is pretty well fixed through that very complex sheet, like I explained. Bus depreciation, we have slightly altered in the past. But like we have discussed, we know that we need to purchase a new bus right now, so I would caution us in that area. Tuition is an area that we have,
So,
yes.
Just 'cause- so would this be to purchase a bus outright? Or would this be take out a loan for a bus and have this to go for loan payments?
No, this is basically replenishing. So, for example, we bought the last bus, let's say round number $250,000. We can depreciate that over a 5-year period. So for each year following that purchase, we can levy $50,000 to replenish that $250,000 amount. So that we have to build that fund back up. And so last year, in order to keep the total mills that we were charging the taxpayers, because we had to increase transportation and we needed to increase tuition, we didn't take the max on bus depreciation last year because we were trying to keep our mills flat. In the long run, that may or may not have been a mistake, because that bus depreciation fund now has not increased to the maximum as quickly as it should have.
So, again, if Ed says, hey, I'm comfortable where we're at right now with buses, and let's say we have something, emergency comes up, is it fiscal violation to try and say, oh, we're not gonna spend 50,000 here this year, put it aside, we're gonna move it to general?
No.
Do that?
Those funds are tied specific to those things.
Okay. Is there any of those funds that we have that flexibility to move around? Is technology?
No, technology is a specific levy. The flexibility fund is the one that we do have.
Flexibility.
Flexibility, yes. Bus depreciation, transportation, retirement, adult education, all of those funds, are allocated to those programs specifically.
Building reserve?
Same thing, yeah.
And
There's a little bit of flexibility in building reserve on, what is defined as, building versus property, but like you still can't take building reserve funds and go buy a 15-passenger van.
So the areas, like I said earlier, the only area this year that I would recommend, if the board felt the need to adjust anything, would be adult education. We still have a pretty healthy number there. If we take the max, we'll have $59,000 in there. Last year, we spent about $20,000 to operate a program.
Where does that surplus go? Does it stay in that?
It stays in there.
And we can't move that?
Can only be used for adult ed programming.
And some schools have gotten in trouble. They've gotten caught spending those adult education funds on things. You'll read that in the newspaper occasionally.
We've even tried to see if we could have like our, 16 and 17-year-olds be involved in, because some of those classes are awesome, but yeah, you can get in trouble. Yeah. Yep. But that, we have 1 mil on adult education right now. We could go down to 0.5, for example, if the board really felt they needed to adjust something. But like I said, since we didn't take the max bus depreciation last year, we know we need buses. I'd really like to see us keep that we know we have great needs in special ed, and this kind of one of the most challenging things is we never know every year until I get that phone call from either the principal or the teacher or over the intercom that, we have some real needs that we didn't know about. We have all these new students that sign up for school, and we don't necessarily know what they're going to need, especially if they're kindergartners. So,
Sorry, it's really good. I just feel like the newbie here with all these questions.
no.
So are you saying if we reduce that to 0.5, can we move that 0.5 up to general?
No.
No. So where would that savings go then, if we reduced adult ed to 0.5?
To the taxpayer.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna take less money from them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's just, 0.5 of a mil, so it's not very significant. That's really the only area I can see us having any option this year. Like, we know that our budget's tight, and we know that we have needs in all of these areas.
Do athletics come out of the general fund?
Yes.
Thinking back to last month, our conversation about baseball,
Mm-hmm.
that sounds like something we would not be able to do outright. Is there any way we can earmark funds there to work towards getting baseball, or how do we do that?
Yeah, I just don't know how we would be able to do it with our current general fund budget. I don't know where else we'd be able to take it from. I guess if we had end of the year money, we ended up coming in lower on utilities and those kinds of things, and we thought that that was a priority rather than the passenger van or some of those other, wants of the district. I talked to a couple of our champions for baseball earlier today as well, and I know that there's a lot of community support for it. I just don't know how we can do it without it being, grassroots and kind of fundraising.
The only other way to bring money into the budget really at this point is to run a voted levy. To take a levy before the taxpayers and say, we need more operational money to operate the school, therefore we're asking for you to pass this vote. And that's essentially where we would have to go at this point to bring more funds into our budget.
There's, like I said, so little area to make any moves on here. Even the staff lunches, I was looking at that, but that's one of those things too that people really appreciate, right, Mr. Hawk? So, yeah, he hangs out in the cafeteria with middle school students. So, yeah. So, there's just not a whole lot of wiggle room right now. And that's something that, if we wanted to run a levy next year and say that, baseball and those things were part of the reasons, and see what the community thought, we could start putting feelers out there, for sure. Because we'd be able to get 20% more. That's right.
66,000.
Yeah, to add to our budget if we ran a levy.
That goes on the May.
Well, I want to make that all.
So it's definitely something to think about. We could see what the community feels like and kind of what those purposes would be, what the priorities would be for that. Yep.
So do you want to take the mill proposal separate, or you want to run it as the same motion?
No, as long as we're not changing it, it's basically factored into the motion because it's in the budget report.
Okay. I guess I am of the mind, if we don't need the money, why are we asking for it now? Does that make sense? If we could drop the adult ed mill to 0.5 instead of 1. Per Susie's comments. If we don't need the funds, then why do we collect the funds? It seems like we would use those cards for that down the road ask when we actually are needing to fund that program. We're not. Won't need to fund it.
Yeah, and that would reduce it by about $10,500.
Is it going to be run similarly? I can't remember. Do we have someone in place to do that?
Terry's no longer running it, so I am going to take on quite a bit of that and work with others. She developed a great program, so the website and the paperwork and all that's all in place now. So it's just plugging the teachers in, and yeah, she left us set up very well.
Okay.
So it won't be as big of a lift.
Well used, the program is.
Oh yeah, we had tons of classes that had the max in them last year, 20 to 30 people in a class all year long. I mean, both sessions were very successful. The fall, winter, and the spring session.
Could you see that program building or having a need to build? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, is it potential
The
to
potential.
spend the same this year or?
Yeah, I would say, I would picture it being as, as big or bigger next year. There's a lot of instructors, because it went really well last year. Terry did a phenomenal job. I mean, word's out there. People have already been calling, wanting to teach classes. There's people that couldn't be in classes because of the caps last year that are hoping they get to take the class this year. So yeah, there's the gardening ones, the outdoor, the tree classes were jam-packed. There was really great cooking classes, all kinds of, the welding one that Clint does is highly attended, and they can only have, he can only have so many people in their welding, obviously. So those classes have caps on them. And then we have our long-standing regular ones. We have about 22 people that come to the book club, and we provide the books, and we pay the book club instructor. Kay Ingalls still does that, and they have a solid group of folks that do that. There's a writing group. The open gym is part of adult ed. The people that are in charge of it, that open the doors, make sure it's locked back up and cleaned up, they get paid the adult ed wages. The pickleball. So those are kind of long-standing ones. Then we have all the ones where we had computer science, we had financial workshops, we had the welding, the cooking, the art, pottery. Yeah, all those. So, and last year was the first year of it kind of getting back off the ground, and it cost us about $20,000. Some of the instructors waive or volunteer. They don't even accept payment. So then we usually just try to give them like something nice from the community, like a gift from one of the local businesses or something.
I guess I would be hesitant to cut that with the program, as described this year, that was growing so rapidly. Because if it continues to grow and we fall short, now all of a sudden we got to pull money from someplace else that we really don't have in order to, fulfill what we offered.
Well, I guess where I was coming at, looking at, there's a $38,000 fund balance there still. If you cut that back in half and lose 10,000 or whatever Susie said, you're still at 20,000, plus you're gaining your 10,000, so you're right back to $30,000 in your fund for programs we spent 20 last year. So that's where my thought process was. It's just if we don't need it, we don't need it, and I hate to ask for it, I'd rather use the ask for future needs, or we're tight on the general fund or something like that, or we want to increase mill, or we're gonna levy at that time. Just my thought, but it's one person.
If we decrease it, do we have to, is this a voted levy? If we want to increase it again, do we have to?
No, see, when we tell the taxpayers back in March, when we sent out that notice, we tell them that we're gonna take 100% of what we can. So we told them already that we were gonna take the max. Now, this is the opportunity to decide we're not going to trim that back. But no, we can't increase it beyond what is here.
I think I'd like to see more than 1 year's worth of information since we're starting it back up again before we make too many changes to the budget. I think just based on, yeah, we do have a balance there, but it sounds like it has potential to use a lot of that balance if it keeps going. I would agree with Jason about wanting to be the fiscal responsibility of taxpayers. I think to make that decision, I think we need to see the whole story though. See where the trend is going.
Okay, any further discussion? Discussion? All those in favor of the motion on the table, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passed. Okay, approve Cedar Street rental agreements.
Okay.
Cedar and Pine Street, excuse me, both.
Yes. So these are the rental agreements for our 2 rental properties. We have year-to-year rental agreements with them, with the understanding that they are for first and second year teachers, unless, unless there's not a need, then they could continue to stay in the residence. So it's really to help them, when they're relocating here and to get their feet on the ground. The one house is much smaller, $500 a month. The other house we have increased to $650. And the floors look awesome. Pulled all the carpet out and Jim refinished them, and they're just beautiful. The natural hardwood that was under the carpet, so that was exciting. They're both in really good shape. We spent quite a bit of time and money on them over the last couple of years. Their roofs are both good. We did new windows and doors in Carly's house, and yeah, we've done a good job of maintaining them, and it gives them a break and an opportunity to get started in our district. It was definitely incredible to have the rental and be able to offer that to Carly. I truly think that's why we were able to obtain her. She was one of 2 FCCLA teacher graduates in the state that year, and she was highly wanted by many districts and chose us because of, the fabulous high school here, but also I think knowing that she had a house she could move into with an affordable rent was huge for her. So
And this is her second year?
this will
in the
be her
house?
second year in the house. Yep. And then Eli's first year, and he does have pets, so I did do an addendum. You'll see on the back for the pets.
You can use my copy.
Oh, I have it right here. Sorry, we didn't get it in all of your packets. So we did $20 per pet per month. He has 2 small dogs that are well potty trained. It is all hard flooring in the house though. And so $40 a month with a $120 pet deposit for the additional family members.
Is there any limitation? I know we had some teachers that were in there for decades.
Yeah.
By default.
Well,
So the
my
new-
point is
Yeah,
that,
no,
but
no.
then that prevents us from being competitive in future years. right?
Yeah, the
So-
new lease has to be renewed annually. And
I just meant towards a progression of like, we'll do it for 5 years, and after 5 years, you're on your own kind of thing. Or
2 years.
It's for, yeah, it's just for first and second year.
Mhm.
Unless it's available.
Unless we have no need for it, then it would go to staff. Yeah, before we, would rent it out to the community. We have had other teachers ask about it. We do have a waiting list right now.
But is there a limit, I guess, here's this question I've had is, if it's a tool to recruit teachers, is there a limit to how long that person can be in there?
2 years.
Oh, it is 2 years.
Mhm. Unless there's no need.
Of a new teacher.
So like
Mhm.
next year, if we don't have no new teachers.
Right, I get it.
But that is a change that was just put. in.
Yes, okay.
But like one of the teachers we just hired, asked to be on the list for next year, for example, so.
Also, I know we just looked at the budget and there's no money for it, but has there been any questions in equity in terms of giving stipends or things that, because of the reduced cost to other teachers who are not utilizing housing?
Mm-mm.
Just the rent is 1/3 of the market price, so just
Mhm.
curious as to if we're needing to explore other options to be competitive.
Yeah, we did just raise this one to $650, and I would recommend, when the current renter leaves, to increase that one as well. But the whole goal is to keep it, low cost. They do also pay utilities on top of that, but no, there hasn't been any discussion like that. We have had staff members, in a transition or something that have asked if it comes open, if it would be available to them. And of course, we've said, if we don't have a new teacher that needs it, of course. So, yeah. And then we do work with, especially Ms. Hartman, works with the new staff to help them locate housing within their means.
I get a lot of phone calls and
We-
people know that.
Yeah.
So I got one last week where she called and said, I got one right now, and so.
Well, I know we've lost teachers right before who were housing, not able to find affordable housing, so my other piece of the question is, what are we doing to address acquiring more?
So they actually call me.
And we,
School-owned housing?
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, I get that.
I have been working with our legislators on that. And through my position on the Board of Public Ed, working really hard to figure out a way to make us available. So one of the things, I'll try not to take too long talking about this, but I get excited about it. For example, talking about funding flexibility, like you were just talking about, Chase, and we have that money sitting there and we don't need it for that purpose. Like our building reserve funding right now, if our facilities are doing great and that kind of thing, or one of those other funding areas that we have quite a bit of money and we don't have a need there, I would like to have it so that we have the flexibility to use that to purchase teacher housing. So that's definitely a goal.
So that 107,000 that's in that budget, could we earmark 20 of that for loan payment? Does school finance work that way?
Not currently, but that's what I've been working with our leaders on hopefully addressing, because it's a huge issue statewide. Yeah, Manhattan and, even other areas have it even worse. When I was a superintendent in Grass Range, if we didn't have employee housing, there was nowhere for them to live unless they brought a trailer. We had all of our teachers lived in employee housing. As a landlord, I was like, 12 places. So, yeah, I mean, in certain communities, it's critical, and that needs just growing with inflation. So, good questions. So yeah, I would in the future recommend we increase that rent. We are on a 2-year max cycle, and our rentals are in good shape. If you want to see this one before Eli's lease starts on the 10th and see how the floors turned out and stuff, just let me know.
All right, I make a motion to approve the leases as written.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the Cedar Street rental agreement for Eli Hone and Pine Street rental agreement for Carly Reese. Is there any discussion? Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passed. Approve the rental agreement for Townsend Storage.
So in the past, we've done a year-long agreement, which allows us to have a discount. However, I did call Isabel Cox and ask her if we could go month to month right now, because like I said, I would recommend that the board pays for 1 more month and terminates the lease, and we haul the remnants of that storage unit to the dump, which will cost us disposal fee.
Before we all at the dump, can we just
Open
open it up?
Yeah,
Public, we go grab it.
free,
Yeah.
yes. You might want to provide gloves and masks before we give anyone the hantavirus, but sure.
Oh, that's quite the place.
And maybe there's nothing that we're doing that for, but I just.
We can sure take a peek, but I have taken our custodian's words for it.
There's nothing of value, and it's larger equipment, is there value in having one of these fall sports teams move it as a practice?
There's no equipment.
I meant, she said desks and other
Oh,
large.
yeah, it's desks.
Stuff that would be good strength exercises.
I think it's the disposal, I think is what you're talking about, right?
Well, she's saying rent it for a month and then have to move it. Like, well, in a month, they're gonna be busy, so why not move it now and utilize the.
Yeah, we can see what we can do insurance wise. We get into a little bit of iffy territory there, especially with it not being on school grounds. We did have them help us move with the buildings previously though. So we have been getting quotes to see if it'd be better to get a dump truck, like a dump trailer. I know they charge different rates if you go truckload by truckload versus the.
So if we got the bin, like you saw
Yeah.
during the construction, it's $100 a week. And then $65 a ton with mileage just to the transfer station. And so it's from that copy cup area down to the transfer station. Or it's our crew to haul it and we just do it by weight, $65 a ton. It's kind of 6
Is
to 1.
one trailer going to be enough? One load?
No. I don't, from what I understand, it's not so much like the weight, it's the awkward size of it. So if they could puzzle it
Desks
together,
and stuff.
it's old desks.
There's some smart boards in there too that are worthless, and there's some other stuff in there that's technology related too, but it's all old stuff that's completely worthless
Yeah.
at this point.
I just don't understand why we kept it.
Yeah.
I mean, we've offered it for sale, it wasn't sold, we've done all the legal things, it just needs to go. I mean, I don't.
Yeah,
I think that's.
I didn't.
Garbage.
We
Garbage.
have a few other areas like this. as well. None that we're paying this much for, though.
I'll make a motion to move to a month-to-month lease, leave it up to leadership to dispose of it quickly, promptly, with safety in mind.
Thank you.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we move to a month-to-month lease, but Cox rental unit, and proceed with disposal of the items. Is there any discussion? Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passed. Approve the substitute list for 2023, 2024.
We are still fine tuning this. We are making contact with everyone and making sure that they're in ASAP, up to date according to their availability, and they're still willing to come back and all of that. But this is who we have approved at this time. So Allison is working through that right now.
I'll move to approve the substitute list for 2023, 2024.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the substitute list for 2023, 2024.
I'm sorry, was that Daniel or Jason? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I have personal interest in this, not second that.
Oh,
Is there any discussion?
You said this is still building too, is that right? Or is this it?
We're going through it right now and cleaning it up. But those are all of the approved subs.
We can add to it.
Yes.
We have one to add when we get to.
Any further discussion? Discussion, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion passed. Approved student attendance agreements, do we have any?
Oh, goodness. I'm gonna have to apologize. I thought we had a late submission yesterday. I thought the item agenda had been removed from
It is removed from
it
mine.
was removed. So we do have one, but it's not with us today.
Oh, I didn't remove it from
made
the
it on
informational.
informational, but
I forgot to delete it from the informational. That was my bad. So,
Please.
Mr. Chairman, if we could table.
All right, approved student handbooks.
Okay, so I'm going to start with a general overview. With our policy revision and all of our school law updates and legislative updates, part of our policy package that we paid for with the Montana School Boards Association was to have Chris Goss, once he finalized our policy manual, to make sure that we didn't have things out of alignment with our handbooks. Part of what spurred our policy review was that we saw discrepancies and where parents would say, well, it says this is a graduation requirement in your handbook, but in the policy it says this, that kind of thing. So definitely wanted to get rid of that. So Chris Goss went through and heavily redlined, as you saw in email. We sent you the redlined versions in email, the handbooks, and a lot of it was just, so I'll go over the main sections and then we can get into detail with each principal if you feel the need to do so. Some of the main areas were Title IX. So the language has changed in law on sexual harassment in Title IX procedures. So that whole section had to be changed to the new language and was taken care of. Another area was dress code. We cannot discriminate in the dress code in any way, like this is for girls, this is for boys, this is for, adults. It's just supposed to be a uniform dress code policy. So we changed those. We updated the discipline procedures. You always have to allow for due process. There's no instance in which you don't allow for due process at some point in a situation. You always have to let them tell their side of the story or that kind of a thing. And expulsion, has to be warranted through more serious infractions. So there was some slight changes to the discipline process as they recommended in accordance with law. Those are the main areas that I can think of. Obviously, some things changed with bell schedules and early release days we removed because we no longer have them, those different components. So that's my kind of overall summary for all of the handbooks. You will notice the classified handbook is not in here. We do have a separate handbook for classified, and we did not get the recommended revisions on that yet. And our previous one was from 2014, the classified handbook, and the recommended one by the attorneys was they have like a model policy one for classified, but then you have to take that and completely alter it to our policies and our new CBA, and we just weren't able to get that all accomplished by today. So Joe and Luke have been helping me work on that. There's a lot of technicalities to try to get that one from 2014 to today. And so I don't know, however you guys would like to do it, if you want to take one by one and talk to the principals about them, or if you want to.
Well, we'll just start with the principals, I guess, if they've got anything to add, and then board trustees can ask questions from there.
So the elementary, besides the red line and the changes that Josh had done, there's just a couple of little things like under meal program on page 12, there was a line in there about being able to pay online with a credit card, which we've never had, so that was omitted. Then under telephones, the teachers no longer have cell phones for messages, so we removed that section about being able to leave messages. And then on page 13, the insurance part at the bottom, they used to have those sent out to everyone and people would just toss them. So again, trying to cut down that paper. We just stated that if they would like them, they can come in and see, talk to the secretary. And then the internet agreement that Goss had added at the end of it, we wanted students and parents to sign it. So what we did, we took it and added it to our handbook signature on the back. So I took that section and added it to another form that they sign on already. And then the handbook is always digital. We don't make copies of them for everyone. They're told to look at them online, and then they can sign off on a one piece of paper.
Basically the same thing in the middle school. Every edit that was made was one to comply with MTSBA's recommendations, identifying policies tied to each thing. And we do the same. Ours, the formatting obviously looks different. It's posted online. We hard copies, but we get all of the agreements signed off on one form. All the internet, handbook, field trip, all that gets done on one form. In fact, sometimes we send it to multiple families to sign on the same form to save paper.
High school, very much the same story. Obviously, just making the general updates. There weren't any giant major changes except for the entire new dress and grooming policy and all of these suggestions, based off Chris's suggestions and Susie's suggestions to make that match to everything. Kind of a change for the discipline grid in the high school. It's using the progressive discipline and the adding of points and all of those things. We reworked it to be much more compliant, I guess is the right word, with what it's supposed to be like. Still have a good discipline policy, still have the levels, just building in a lot more flexibility for something really egregious it, there is, consequences of discretion of the administrative team, meaning at that point, if it's that egregious, it's usually involving the superintendent, myself, and possibly the treasurer, and we have to do some of those. We have situations like that this summer, so, and then allows for that, it could be a possible explosion depending on, what the incident is. But it gives us that discretion to deal with it, per law and through our district policy. And that's going to do well. So that was a major change there. The only other thing is like, we're always working on, attendance and tardies, and we did make a minor tweak for tardies. In the past, if the students, we have bulldog time in the morning from 8 to 8:30. In the past, if students were 10 minutes late for bulldog time or later, it would move to be an unexcused absence or an absence instead of a tardy. Kids are smart and they come 10 minutes late, so they didn't have to adhere to the tardy policy. So we decided maybe bulldog time could just be a tardy regardless, and then once the class period starts at 8:30 for first hour, then it would move to if you're later than, that period of time, then it does become, an unexcused absence at that point. If it hasn't been called in by a parent, or obviously we accept all, any information from parents saying, my child's late because of this. Other things we're just tweaking in wording of this, we talked a lot, with the high school staff they worked a lot on, I had a whole committee go through the handbook and kind of work on things that they felt like maybe needed updated or tweaked. Cell phone policy is always something hard in the use of the classroom especially. So we're pretty much going to try to, not get some consistency with cell phones, kids not being on their cell phones or having them out during instructional time and during bulldog time when they should be using that time to get help from teachers and work on their homework and things like that. Tighten that down a bit, get some consistency with staff. We go back and forth. Do we take them completely out of the classroom? Trust me, I've canvassed many administrators and all of our teachers and sent out a survey, and it's so split on what to do with that. And it has to be something that we can manage as well. And part of kids being in high school is giving them instruction on how to be responsible with those things. You got to be responsible. And our cell phone policy, as far as if they are not using it properly, has worked really well as far as our, kind of 3 strikes you're out policy has worked really well. So that way it's not an immediate discipline thing. They get a couple of chances to figure it out. So those are probably the biggest ones. We updated the dance things that came out of our discussion with the dance policies, all of those. So pretty much just updating dates and times and a few language tweaks and all of the major stuff that Chris did. And, we just got the rep drafts of these, and obviously, we just all came back on yesterday. So I know Brad and I and Christina were all cranking on our hands for the last day and a half trying to get these updates made. So please, if you see something that was a mistake, or I would not be surprised if we needed to, before we put them out on the website and everything, just to make sure that everything is where it should be.
I do have one question on the faculty one. There's a few things in here that we don't do anymore. So should some of that be like a specific newsletter on page 6? Some of those things that we can omit.
Is this in yours?
No, the faculty one.
Oh,
I didn't look at the faculty one until now. I was just like, there's a couple of things in here. I'm like, oh, we don't do that. We don't do that.
Yeah. Yep. We should definitely look at that. I deleted quite a few, but I did not catch those ones. Same with the bulletins. I don't know if we.
That we can newsletter for elementary. I have a bold and I do daily, but that's I can do some things that.
Yeah, and we just got these back from Chris Goss recently, so it was kind of a mad dash to get them ready, but I wanted to be able to have them to utilize during our PIR days, our new teacher training. So That's why we wanted to bring them before you. They were a bit rushed, though.
Any questions for principals specific to their?
Are you guys finding you have any trouble with Apple Watches and students that are presenting cell phone rules with parents?
Yes and no. Yeah, they're smart. They're good with their technology, even on the Chromebooks. I mean, we work all the time with, Chromebooks. And I think, for, especially at the high school level, we just keep a very close eye on that. If, kids have, and obviously don't even get us all started. ChatGPT is so huge right now. I saw a lot of things on that this summer at all my PT about how to use it productively and positively, but yet how do we mitigate, how that's being used in an appropriate manner. And I think with the high school kids, it's just like, ethically, we know what's right, we know what's wrong. If you get caught cheating, then you're going to be disciplined, there'll be consequences for that. And, as smart as they are, we catch them. So, but yeah, it's definitely, it's tough. It's tough. We actually had a couple of kids in the taking the ACT that violated the phone thing, and we had to kick them out of the very final ACT test, and that was really stressful. So, yeah.
And then we have to report it
Yeah.
as a testing violation.
Yeah.
I think like you mentioned, getting that consistency from teacher to teacher is very important and
That's
a place to
hard.
start.
Yeah, it is. And we're gonna, we all want, and that, that's a staff issue too, and they know, and they actually brought to teachers, so we just got to get more consistent. So, try to work on that, during certain instructional times, students should not be on their phones, and we need to be consistent about that with every classroom. And they're not working with the commissioner, and it's hard because like in art class, a lot of times they come in, they're working on a project, Mr. Bartlett's fine, he doesn't want their cell phones obviously, but a lot of times they're looking up, samples for their projects, or they're plugged into their music club, or just on their art. It's tough to regulate class to class to class, it really is. We need to get tighter on it as much as we can.
And in ours, we do let it be up to the individual teachers, how they want to handle it in their room. We have rules for common areas or whatever, but, teachers have some different strategies, and it's their classroom rule, and if a student violates that, then deal with it appropriately. But, seriously, the biggest problem with the phones is if they don't have them, you're gonna spend the rest of your day looking for them with the kid, because that's just how it goes. I mean, it's whether you tell them they can have them or not have them. I spent a lot of time that my cell phone was stolen. I think I've seen one in all these years that was actually stolen, and the rest were.
You have one in particular that loses a lot.
I mean, it's just, it's like that with any technology, Chromebooks, same way, but really, there's not a lot they can do on their, they can do anything on their Chromebook, they can do on their phone. So, I don't know, I struggle a little bit with asking students to step back 20 years when you walk through the schoolhouse doors. I mean, this is the life we're in right now, learn, teach them to use it responsibly and deal with it, instead of just say you can't have it.
My one of my favorite instances was our one student that had, I think she had 3, so she'd turn one in at the office every morning, and then we would take another one at some point in the day. She'd still have one by the end of the day. So yeah, they've got all kinds of techniques.
It's a tough thing.
Yeah.
I know in all of, at least the elementary and high school ones, there's topics for earthquake and fire drill. Is there any need to add other threats that may exist to the school district and these types of handbooks, as far as even just information?
Even question, like, when we were going through that question, even including the fire and the earthquake particularly, because they're pretty brief. I mean, there's a few things, but I wondered if there wasn't, because we do have the school safety policies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how to, that's a hard one.
I just was thinking, we had the discussion last time about doing at least a drill with full scale
Right.
to include pickup and drop off at the fairgrounds,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so if we're having some threats but not all, or even add that line in here about, in the event of X, we're going to,
Refer to whatever our safety one might be.
or just even
Right.
trying to inform parents that that's what's going on, and that's what's gonna happen, or this is how you'll be contacted, this is how you'll be communicated with.
That's what, I don't know, we have that all locked in yet.
Are they still working on that?
Yeah, there's a lot of issues with that,
Because we never had a snow day before.
from, I'm working with the people of,
We don't give too much information.
Right, no, I understand.
yeah, and it changing according to every, situation. I think, we have a safety manual that will, I do think would be wise to have one, yeah.
Yeah, I see what you're
don't know.
saying, though,
I see,
that-
Yeah, it is.
So they know that the information's
Like that.
somewhere and they can access it, or we can at least lead them towards it in here. Yeah.
Another comment I think I made at the first meeting was that we do those screenings and health screenings and other things, just that we notify parents that week of or week before the date is coming up. Your students are gonna have testing next week.
Like a hearing in the.
Yeah, and they agreed to it through the handbook, I get that piece of it, but then it's just kind of like, yeah, by the way, this strange guy talked to me today and did my hearing test. What's that about? From a parent's perspective, if you don't recall or don't read or whatever, it would be helpful to have just.
I made the secretary read our handbook today.
For the eligibility in high school, can we add the MHSA requirements? Or is that in the,
It's in the training rules.
that we got yesterday?
I think so, yeah.
Okay,
What page was that on?
13. 13?
13. I'll look at it. Yeah, I think this one's in general, but it says these eligibility rules and guidelines are fully outlined in the activities handbook. So that's the packet that everybody gets at the very beginning. When we, like what we did last night.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's like, it's a lot, it's long, so.
On the terms of like the Chromebooks and stuff like that, just kind of a question on that, is what's the policy, I don't know if it's like, it should be in the handbooks or not, or if it is, I missed it, on damage to,
Yeah, it's in there. There's different price that we have set for different things,
okay.
like screens and things like that.
They sign,
Technology agreement, right?
yeah,
That's
Like,
what
don't they
that's
sign-
what the use agreement is, and it talks about the damage and so forth for the cost.
you're responsible for the placement of anything else.
I just recall talking to Brad earlier this year and hearing over here, students say, well, yeah, I got thrown off my desk. And it's like, oh, again. So I wasn't sure if they were on the hook there. Okay.
That's a discretionary thing, that's hard. I mean,
Sure.
We try to err on the side of giving everybody the side. And most of the time, most of the time they'll come and say, I broke it, I'm sorry. My screen broke. Gee, I don't know.
I
how
just
that
broke,
happened.
I just said.
I just slid it in.
That is what they always say too. That's funny. They lose chargers, stuff like that.
Great, any further questions or a motion?
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the student handbooks.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the student handbooks. Is there any discussion? Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passed. Staff handbook.
Move to approve the staff handbook.
Is it ready to go? I mean, there's some draft edits.
With-
Clean it up.
I'm missing the
With
back half
revisions.
from page 29 on.
Oh, no, the table of contents
Oh,
is messed up.
She changed, I think she changed the formatting, so then it changed.
Yes, and I'm not gonna lie, we were printing these at like 5:30, so I do need some time to make some revisions, but the contents, the major contents have all been updated. So if you would approve it with, or we can bring it back in September. I just wanted something to give to the new staff, especially at our PIR days. But if you would approve it with revisions and updates or something like that, that would be appreciated.
Still need a second.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the staff handbook with some pending revisions. Is there any discussion? Discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passed. Okay, approve potential changes to the playground fence, continuing discussion. So when we left the committee meeting last time, we asked for some bids on 6-foot fence with slats, 8-foot fence with slats, and then the brick wall proposal. All of those were emailed out. We didn't print them again, did we?
No, I have them pulled up right here though.
So those were all sent to you. So I guess that's where we'll go from here.
So I have a 6-foot chain link with slats for $17,200, and 8-foot chain link with slats for $22,500, and the brick wall for over $250,000. So I just wanted to comment on a few of the research topics and conversations that I had. So I know that when speaking with colleagues, the highest fence that anybody had that I was able to speak to at the school administrators conference was 6 foot, and a lot of them were 4 foot. A lot of them don't have complete closure. Where we have the gates where like our snow plows would come in and out, they just have openings. We do like having the ability to close them, especially for our little ones, or for like sometimes we'll have autistic students that will run and that kind of thing. So we do like being able to have it closed for those purposes. And so those are just some things that I found out. I know that in order to come up with our designs, I did learn more about the criteria. There is criteria, safety criteria for playgrounds. For example, you have to have a certain amount of depth of the cedar chips, all those different kinds of things. There is not criteria on the fence for a playground. There is recommendations, and our architects followed the guidelines and recommendations put out on school playground safety, from what I can tell from the research. From the experts in school safety, there was a lot of different discussions. We've already talked about the one point of view that, we want people to be able to get out. We also had a conversation about, it really depends on what the goal of the fence is. And I know that Chase has talked about this a little bit before, like whether we're trying to keep people out or keep people in, or those kinds of things. The Homeland Security safety expert said, that line of sight can be very important and being able to see those threats, but there's also something to be said for people not being able to see in. So it's really hard because there's literally there's an argument for each side of literally all of it, pretty much from what we found. So that's challenging. I did find out that you can sell ad space, but you have to be very careful about it. Like, it can't say bar or have any reference to alcohol or those kinds of things. So it would have to be like cafe or those sort of things. But that is an option. My personal concern with the slats, I know Casey was kind of checking out when she was in East Helena. They did the slats on one of the schools in East Helena and
Radley.
at Radley. They're just kind of broken and it looks kind of shambly. I know with the hail we have around here, like the vinyl fences can get hit pretty hard. I imagine it being kind of like that. That was just a concern, like the optics of how that would look. So those are just some thoughts. I do like the idea of doing the bollards. Did I say it right this time, Daniel? Oh, great. So I do like that idea. I know that quite a few of us have been talking about different netting options. If the netting part or the basketballs is what we're worried about, we could probably come up with our own netting structure with our shop team and or facilities team that would be much more cost effective than I believe it was like $5,000 that was proposed.
Right, there again, it's probably
earlier.
the same exact netting, it's just, the overhead costs of asking Dick Anderson to do it, who's gonna hire fence crafters to do it, I mean, that's where the bulk of that.
Right,
is.
right.
I think the netting that they proposed and the netting that, was brought up is probably the same exact
Mm-hmm.
fabric, it's just how much overhead cost you put into installing it.
Right. I think a lot of it comes down to threat assessment as well and, training our staff, making sure that we have people by those gates, by the fence, monitoring those areas. I know Miss Hartman had some good ideas on like landscaping that could be more of a deterrent and kind of help with the visual components that were a concern of people being able to just totally see in, but still allow for us to see out. So those are just some of the topics that I wanted to bring up. Safety is just of the utmost importance, and it is a really hard decision to make on this because, like I said, there's so many different ways to look at it. Homeland Security did agree to come and take a look in person and provide further recommendation. So we are working on scheduling a visit with them. And they do a bit of a different site assessment than the RIMS site assessment, which is the one we previously got. And they do a lot more debriefing and like talking with us than kind of just handing us a report. So I think that will be exciting. I know he does a really great job and has been doing it for a long time and has military background. But I think he brings a lot of expertise to the table. So just be another aspect of advice and from a different perspective for us. So those are my thoughts. And I'll just open it up for you to take it away for discussion.
Yeah, I guess, we've got to get to a point where we're either going to leave it as is and move on, or we need a proposal to do something different and move on. But we've got to get to one point or the other on what we want to do. I know each time we kicked out a proposal and seen the cost, somebody will suggest, well, maybe we look at this, but I think one way or the other, we got to come up with an idea and move forward with it, or leave it as it is and move forward with it.
What were the costs again? Can you share those?
Yeah, the 6-foot chain link with lattice, we had 17.2, and then the 8-foot we had with lattice was 22,500.
you really have two different issues, right? One is the balls going out in the street, the other one is potentially fence modification to address that. Really, a 6-foot fence and an 8-foot fence aren't gonna address the balls going out in the street, right?
That's a matter of, like you said, some kind of netting for the balls. I think that we just gotta get inventive on that.
So that issue is kind of resolved, the basketball issue, the basketballs going out in the street, we've got a solution for that.
I think we just gotta come up with the netting to do it with. We just gotta work together with a group of people to get the right layout of it.
So,
And that wouldn't be that large of an amount that necessarily needs to come before the board.
I found on Amazon, they have a system that's 15 feet long, 12 feet high, comes with the poles, and it's $600.
And that's what I mean, there's
Right,
things out
so I
there.
mean, there's those
all
options out
kinds
there,
of options out
Scott,
there, yeah.
so I think.
The balls, I don't
would
think
agree
are,
the
yeah,
cost.
that I think we can definitely figure out something. I think it's just a matter of what you want for a fence.
So
I mean, besides the slats, there's also like the screen you can put on a fence.
in circulating out throughout the community, it's the majority of the people I've talked to don't feel safe with where we're at right now. What I recommend is bringing in the safety experts, Homeland Security, bring in the Sheriff's Department, have them meet together with some of us. I'll be on that meeting, whoever else wants to join me. And let's get a recommendation from the experts, because I'm not an expert. But I do know there's a huge amount of concern in the community right now with what we have. And that's what we're charged to do. That's why we're trustees, is we're entrusted with the safety of our kids, number one. So that's what I recommend, because I'm not a safety expert. I just know the people that I've talked to don't feel comfortable, neither do I, with where we're at, so. We talked about the one training of charging trustees to spearhead a task. Is that something we want to do here with this so we can get the ball rolling? Seems like we kind of talked about it the last month, but nothing's really happened.
Well, Susie, did you mentioned that somebody would come? Is that? what-
Yeah, so Randy Middlebrook is prepared to come, and we just need to schedule a date that would work for everyone. So if you guys want to give me some ideas that I can send to him, or if you want me to ask him for some dates and then send them out to you, whichever way we can get that rolling. I wasn't sure if that's a route you wanted to go. And then definitely we could invite the Sheriff's Department and
I think that'd be good.
anybody else you thought.
We made a contact as well through Department of Homeland Security. I believe they referred us to, no, let me look at my email. I don't want to get this wrong. It was through Montana DES, and they gave Susie the suggestion to talk to Sergeant Jay Nelson with the Highway Patrol. He's had a lot of trainings with active shooting.
Oh, yeah.
And give us any kind of advice there. Did get a response back that I kind of, I'll go through quickly. It sounds like a lot of the stuff that we're doing already with access control at the doors, having monitors on the playground is some of the biggest steps that we could do. The 6-foot fence and bollards was suggested as a possibility, but again, he's someone that's available to come down here, look at our facilities again at no cost to the school.
I think that's good. Also, I think it would be good for buying, some feedback from the teachers and the paras out in the playground. If we could have a representative from a para. I know Travis still a para?
Mm-hmm.
I know he's got military background as well. It'd be nice to have someone like him to be representative there, so we'll get a perspective from who's out there on the playground as well. I think that's important to be part of this group to come up with a plan.
I was speaking with a gentleman just yesterday, and he was like, you know what school playgrounds need? Military veterans. I was like, that's what we've got. We have a few, actually. So paras, teachers, The experts, board members. Okay, so kind of put together a committee?
I guess at that point, I think we just call it a special meeting and invite, we just invite everybody. But once, we need to get I guess whoever's gonna lead that discussion or lead that, we need to get a date from them first, or a range of dates if they're available.
Okay,
And then try and coordinate, that meeting time around that.
Daniel, you want to help me reach out to them then and see which one, or if it's awkward to have them both at the same one, or what we want to do?
Yeah, I can help with that.
Yeah, and so I do appreciate you helping me call, and we did reach out and get a lot of information. It was just all over the board. Like they said, it totally depends on, I think it's hard for them without being here to say, and then also it really depends on what your risks are or what risks you're trying to mitigate. So, we got a lot of great information, made some good contacts. So I think the next step's just utilizing them. So we'll work on that, setting that up.
So we will defer consideration of that item until we get that meeting set. Okay, personnel, we have some resignations.
Yes, so you have your updated information page because we had some names change. So we have paraprofessional Teresa Connor. She's moving to the kitchen. KitchenAid Cody Skillman, she left for college. Super proud of her. She would like to come work on her breaks from college, so we're happy for that. High school assistant golf coach Wendy Gravely, paraprofessional Linda Kent, and paraprofessional Tamara Christensen Lopez. So as you can see, we have some paras not returning we really need to fill. And we are still looking for another KitchenAid.
Move to approve the resignation of the presented. Yeah.
As
Must be
presented.
getting late.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the resignations as presented for the 2023-2024 school year. Is there any discussion? Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passed. All right, employment.
As I mentioned earlier, we are working but do not have a positive behavior coach solidified yet. We have assistant cross country coach Lois Ingalls. Lewis, sorry. I was gonna say the other way. PE educator Eli Hone, head wrestling coach Eli Hone, KitchenAid Teresa Connor, high school head golf coach Dan Hazlett, library story hour Latasha Wirtz.
Cody is a sub.
Cody
And
Skillman.
Oh, and Tamara moved as.
Tamara moved down to a substitute, and Cody Skillman moved down to a substitute as well.
Everyone's got terms.
Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the hires as presented for the 2023-2024 school year pending background checks.
I'll second it. It's been moved and seconded to approve the hires as presented for the 2023-2024 school year pending background checks. Is there any discussion?
Did you say Latasha Wirtz was also going to be a sub?
No, library story hour.
Okay.
Do we have any policies related to hiring committees and who's on and how many, and that kind of stuff related to hiring coaches specifically?
That is a great question. I can look up policies. I don't know them off the top of my head. I will tell you that we have made some changes due to some lessons learned recently. So we have expanded interview committee for coaches so that we have more of a broader team to do that. A lot of times when it's a head coach, I'm involved. For football, for example, I don't know a whole lot about the technical aspects of football. So Brad Rock volunteered to sit in on that with the athletic director and the high school principal. So we are going to make sure that we have at least 3 people on those interview committees from now on. And we did talk about our process and tighten that up and go through that. So we did do some reflections. We know that we could do things better, and we've made some changes. If you'd like to look into that further, that's always something we can bring to the table. But we have changed our processes recently.
So just on that note, and I appreciate you making some changes here.
Mm-hmm.
On the staff handbook, page 24, when it talks about personnel development system, a quality personnel development system is a key to excellence in the school district. Totally agree. Such a system must include a supervision component, evaluation component, and a comprehensive staff development component. I think it's critical that when we're sitting down with our coaches, that we're just not saying this in a document, we're actually executing in that. And part of that has to be an annual, maybe even semi-annual conversation with our coaches of, hey, what are your goals?
Mm-hmm.
Where would you like to go? Oh, you would like to be X. Okay, here's where we see what you need to achieve to be able to be X.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a conversation instead of just checking the block in these evaluations that all of us in human nature can get, especially when you have to knock out 10 or 20 of them. It gets pretty easy, but it's so critical for this piece of personnel development to take the extra time. It's extra work, but that's why we're all paid the big bucks to be in that position. So please ensure that's happening to not only our teachers, but our coaches as well, because those conversations are critical to be able to implement and execute something like this. Easy said, hard to do, but it's worth it.
Time consuming, but pays off.
Yes, yeah. So thank you for making some changes, Susie, to that. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Susie and I and John Odell both all kind of talked about, looking at some professional development type opportunities too, for not only the teachers, but for our coaches. And I know those things are out there. We haven't utilized them to my knowledge before, but I think there's some things we need to look into for developing that, those skill sets and whatnot.
And I know like Coach Rao went regularly and he'd always bring me his certificates. So I know he was really invested in some of the coaching training that he went to, but I just don't know if everybody knows what's available or how to access it. So that's something that we can work on.
Especially for our coaches. I mean, that's a very valid point, especially when we have young, new coaches that probably need help with developing it. And obviously we can address, many of those issues and evaluations and conversations, but like you said, it's once a year or it's, and it may behoove us to try to get some PD that's more beneficial along the way or at the beginning or agree.
Yeah, and, a lot of these individuals that come into coach, they know their sport, they know their activity, they know how to train players, but have they ever been taught how to have an interaction between a coach and a parent and a player and a parent, and how to handle those situations so we don't have, things that get heated too fast and get out of control. And there are programs I know out there where they do teach, and talk about, how to
Conflict
implement those
resolution.
conflict resolution,
Yes.
all those types of things that, first time coaches, they don't know until all of a sudden now they're in a discussion with a parent that's mad, a player that's upset, and they just, they don't have the skills in the background to deal with that situation.
Well, we're having a lot of discussions, obviously, too, with like teacher mentoring as an area we know we can improve on it. And so, why not make that all inclusive for coach mentoring as well, too? I mean, we have a lot of veteran coaches that are very good at this, and they have a lot to share with people to help, some of our younger folks or people that need help with those areas too. So, yeah, good.
And even community mentors. I know someone, newer moved to the community that has some great coaching experience that reached out that wants to help with one of our teams. And we do have a new coach in that spot. So, and they were they're volunteering. So I thought, what the heck, we'll try to connect them. So that's great to have those opportunities.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion passed. Okay, my recommendation here, well, there's two things we can do. We went through a number of those policies last time on first reading. I think if everybody's okay with them, we can still approve those on second reading without having to get too deep in the weeds. The ones that we decided we were going to wait on, I suggest that we still wait on those until we have an agenda that has not quite as much information as this one. So, or we can skip them all and wait to do the second reading as well. I'm open to whatever people want to do there, but I don't believe it's appropriate at this point to dive into that many policies.
I appreciate that, Mr. Chair. I just didn't know if there's a need to have everything held by this higher school, or it's just default to old policy.
Yeah, I think, as we discussed last time on the ones that we did get into, the majority of them are, legal references that were updated and legal laws that changed. But yeah, that obviously.
I just didn't know if we need to have a set of policy manual with the Missouri School District.
Well, we do have, the policy manuals in place.
My preference would be so that I can get that large chunk I can send off to the attorneys to get updated in our policy manual like this week. Would be for you guys to just do one big swoop of move to approve the second reading of all of those policies as presented. If we could get a motion like that and you feel like that's appropriate.
Yeah, we can do that. As long as nobody had any, second thoughts or considerations on the ones that we did go through last time. If everybody's still comfortable with what we approved on first reading, then yeah.
So then, just so you know how that works, then I just notify Chris Goss that we approved those as they were presented, and he'll just update them to those current versions on our drive. And then, yes, I agree and appreciate your recommendation to hold. I know that you guys didn't have anything going on this weekend, so. No, I think the other ones, our meeting's pretty early in September. I think we'd be okay on these to wait. I don't think there's anything dire.
We'll have all the ones we need to have on the website for policy up on the website.
They're all linked under one link directly on the MTSBA website.
Yeah.
And that link is there currently, correct?
Let me make sure right now.
Yes.
I believe.
It's under combined policies, I believe. I was in there today.
If not, I can make it happen like right away.
I clicked into it today, but I think it was under the title of combined policies, which was a little bit confusing. But.
Oh, yeah, I know why I put it there. Yep. I know where you mean.
I move to approve the second reading of the policies as presented.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the second reading of the policies as presented. Is there any discussion? Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passed. Okay, we will defer consideration of those remaining policies to the next agenda. Principals reports, Mrs. Hartman.
So the 21st century, I attended the national conference in New Orleans. Probably I've ever been in my life. The last 2 days there was, yeah, it was a little warm, so But I was, grateful that I got to attend. I got a lot of great materials that they will bring back and hoping to actually apply some of those materials into our 5th day at the Local After School program. And so, we've been discussing a little bit more about that today, and moving forward, we're still trying to work on all of the logistics of it, of, like the food and stuff like that, how we cover, because we're getting mixed messages on a lot of it. So we're working on it, we're getting there. I am gonna start working on the forms for parents to fill out, because we have had people come asking us about it. So we'll have forms for them to fill out and get that set up. I don't know if, like, I can do like an online, we're still trying to figure out how to get those numbers, so we know how many people are gonna be there. We talked about having a no-show fee, so that if we're told we're gonna have 50 people, kids there, and we have enough people and only 30 show up, there's gonna be cost to that, so, still working on some of that. I didn't know if anyone, I kind of reached out to Jason and talked a little bit about it, if we need to, anyone wants to be involved a little bit more, we need to, on what happens on those 5th days. I know we're gonna meet tomorrow and talk about esports, about having that available for kids. I know I'd like to bring in drones, podcasts, those kinds of things, but I'd also like to, I've talked to the pottery, having that available for kids. But I don't know, our community has so many other ideas, where some things that I don't want it just to be based on my ideas of what I'm getting out there. I want to hear more. So I don't know if that's something that, if there's a committee that wants to be part of that, to kind of, help grow that. I don't know. So something to think about, or if you have ideas, shoot them forward to me. I'm just kind of going based on what I've learned at these conferences that I've attended, between Polson and New Orleans. So, the drones were a big one, because they're trying to get kids into getting their flying, licenses and stuff, and so they talked about how kids can get that at the age of 16, so I just thought that would be a great thing, because I do have to offer K-12. So that'd be a great thing to have to bring in. We've talked about the radio, that maybe some podcasts can be tied into the radio, things like that. So there's a lot of ideas out there, just trying to get things lined up and moving forward. So it'll be a little slow at first, but we'll get there.
Almost like the adult ed, where we kind of do like the call for people to hold classes. It'd be kind of cool to do sort of something similar, like experts to come in to do
Right.
different things with the kids.
Right. Yeah, so that's something, yeah. If people have some kind of a, I know there's a couple of gentlemen at the Legion, they're really into the cooking and stuff like that. And, bringing some of them in. I know Stoke wants to work with us too, so I know there's lots of groups that want to work with us as well.
Which is a great community connection.
Yeah, yeah, and one of the gentlemen at Legion informed me the other day about doing something. They really want to help with middle school kids at the 5th day. They just really want to make sure that those kids, and they're open to high school too. There's just high school kids can get jobs and stuff, so they really want to work with those kids that can't, and they don't want them to get lost or anything per se. They want to be there to be that assistant with it. So I've had a lot of people reach out to me as well, wanting to be part of it. Our summer camps were very successful. Took a little juggling every once in a while, especially with transportation. So our last week, I had to beg and plead and borrow, and I had a driver take a group down, stay the night, and another driver took the driver's ed car the next morning. They switched out because they had doctor's appointment, and so it got quite inventive trying to get through the last week. But we
Bribed them with gifts.
Right, yeah, I know. We did everything. As they get a positive review, so we really, but the kids had a blast. I got a lot of positive comments on them. The families were really happy with one of the events that they got to choose from and got to attend. And so hopefully we can that can keep growing, and with the 21st we'll be able to expand on that as well. So, but I really I had a great crew, and I want to thank that crew. They put a lot of extra time in and effort, and thank the bus drivers and everything for everything they did. So it was huge. We really had some last minute things that we really had to pull together. So I appreciate it. Staffing and numbers, so we were not, as you know, I shared an email with you, we were not able to make transitional kindergarten happen. Just couldn't get enough parents to agree to that situation, so I'm hoping that if it's something we want to move towards next year, that maybe we can front load a little earlier and provide more information on it and the benefits of it, if we can make that happen. With that, we did end up losing 3 students in the end that wanted transitional, and so they chose not to put their child in kindergarten. But since then, with the numbers that Susie has provided with you, we are back up to 69 kindergartners, so they just keep showing up. So on these numbers that she has shared with you in the back, we are actually +6 overall, again, from that, when she printed that. So we just keep climbing, even though we're losing a couple of students, we just keep climbing.
K through 5?
Yeah, K through 5, we're still +6, and she printed this number, this sheet on that. So, and like I said, and we're still, I mean, we've lost students too, but we're still up 6 from that. And so, but so far, we're still sitting well with staffing. Kindergarten's getting a little close, but we're still there. So with a cap of 20 in each room, so we still got room for 11 more. Okay, yeah, way more. We do have our PIR days coming up, and so the second day, we are gonna have K5 trained in tax. It is a program we brought in a few years ago, right before COVID. And then with COVID, we were not able to utilize the entire program. So we're just using portions of it. But now we're bringing it all the way back again. It was a great behavior program that we used in the classroom. Everyone's consistent. We all use the same, systems. Everyone's the same verbiage. So it's really great. If you ever see me in the lunchroom, I told my whistle once and put 2 fingers up, and the kids know they're quiet. So, and they work really hard to be quiet fast. So that's just one system from tax that we use, and everyone's consistent then. So got everyone being trained on that. As far as anything else, I am working with the Fish and Wildlife. I've been sent government line, they send you on to someone else, but I think I've got someone. Dealing with a lady in Bozeman. We're having a major problem with bats on the playground. And they're hanging low enough to where the kids are actually wanting to touch them. They're on the ground, they're on the window ledges, they are everywhere.
Jill keeps finding them in the building.
They're in the building, and but they're getting really bad on the playground right now. And so I've reached out to her to see if she can help us to see if we can do bat houses or if there's something we can do.
Jill sent out some info.
Yeah, so have her get a hold of me when she comes here. I have a special interest in bats myself. I know where they're roosting, so that might be of assistance to them.
Okay. Yeah, we gotta do something. If they were up high, it'd be one thing, but they're actually like hanging out down where all the kids want.
And I also know that Jim O'Lockery has mentioned that her kids could build bat houses. And I know the new biology teacher, he's also very interested in any bats that are found on campus. He'd love to have them, if they find dead ones, he'd love to have them for kids.
Oh, they're not dead.
No, they're alive.
There's
They're not yet.
safety
Yeah, there is.
There was one today that almost became dead, but.
So first you can bring him to Mr. Rock's office.
Yeah.
I'm a former, longtime Susan Clark Caverns employee. Know a lot about bats and working with bats and things like that. Bat houses are really effective. There's a lot of, also biology degree too. There are a lot of mitigation things that we can do to help with bats. And last year, it just started showing up a lot last year. And we wondered if a lot of it wasn't the construction.
It was,
Something got
yeah.
disturbed. And so now they're just like, we don't know where to go.
So the ironic thing here is I built a bat house and put it out this spring, and I don't have any bats in my bat house.
Well, I was told that we could put up bat houses, but they have to be trained to use them. So I'm like, that's why I'm calling this expert to get her to help out. So I'm like, I'm not trained the bats, and I don't want to.
Oh, come on, Kristen.
I just called Brad.
Depending on the kind of bat, it can get very costly for schools as well. So we have to be careful.
Yeah, so that's why we're trying to get some help to assist with the bats because they're getting pretty thick. And Today, one of the custodians was out, just blowing off the sidewalk and he didn't see it on the ground. He almost walked on it, but, so they're just everywhere right now. And they're hanging out by the front door, but mainly the playground.
Brad will go around.
Well, I came in.
Why do you want me,
I'm teasing.
you don't build a mouse house? I mean,
We need bats. Bats are the
no, they do not. I got bats all over. You can't even walk through my yard. There's about 5 pounds.
How many they're-
They do have that many bats to handle mosquitoes out where I live.
We need bat.
I'm trying, Brad, I'm trying.
All right, anything further?
No, but
Any questions for Christine?
Just a comment, I guess, kind of to everybody, as you get dates for your fall stuff and winter concert specifically, was the one I was thinking of today, trying to plan on December. If you help,
Yes.
know what day.
Are you
So that-
serious?
I'm thinking next summer already, like.
kind of like you got your picture date already.
Oh my gosh.
Out there right away.
So just as we get dates for the most of all class night and the STEM night and the winter concert was, like I said, the one that moved December, trying to figure out when I can book some meetings for work.
On the district calendar, district Google calendar, we try to get those on there immediately as soon as we know. So there may be a lot of those that have already
Okay,
been.
just so that they're
Yeah.
out and available to the community
Yeah.
as soon as
Remember this
possible.
year I'm splitting mine, so we'll look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm already.
You're already
I
into
don't know what I'm
December.
doing tomorrow.
Yeah, we're sure.
Yeah, so with ours, we're kind of the same boat. The numbers, they're steadily increasing, and it looks like, even though we sent a pretty large class off, as of right now, if every student showed up, we'd definitely be over where we ended the school year last year. So, and usually the week before school is when we see the highest increase. Staffing still, I think, working with Mrs. Heverin, we've kind of got it worked out, to get our schedule finalized and start being able to put rosters into our system and all of that. And we are going to have an orientation on the same night as the high school. So, which is, what night are you doing yours?
Tuesday.
Tuesday?
Tuesday the 22nd,
Tuesday the 26th.
6:30, Brad.
Okay.
We have our ice cream social, but we're doing it on Monday, so we're doing it opposite night this year.
That's it. It's off and running. It's just, I mean, it's just a hectic time with some new staff coming in and just lots of new people to our community. Okay.
December?
So yeah, just to echo Brad real quick, he and I sat down and I mean, we got, honestly, I still don't have a final master class schedule. Well, I think maybe we do now, with just late hirings and trying to piece things together. And obviously we're trying to fill holes where we don't have staff, teaching staff. And so Brad and I worked together intensely yesterday to try to plug those holes, utilize the staff we have. We have some high school staff that will have to take on a middle school class or two. We're shifting around teachers. We are having to cut some classes from some of the high school offerings in order to cover the mandatory required things we have to have. And I just know everybody will take it the way they need to take it and we'll get it done and try to get a lot of that covered. I'm happy to report that we have a stack of new student registration things that need to go in, and much like Brad, the high school sees the new students flood in that week before, or sometimes the week of, those 3 days walls and have, a bunch of new students. So I'm happy to see and with the big freshman camp class coming in for us, I know some of our upper levels are still a little smaller, but we're starting to even out to be where we usually are status quo. So that's all really good news. We're excited about that. Fall activities kind of kicked off last night at the parent meeting and they start practice on Friday. So that's rolling as well. Numbers are awesome and we're very excited. Participation numbers are really up. We're looking at around 30 in every program. And so that's outstanding. We want kids busy and doing those activities. So that's very good. And as Brad said, we're just gearing up, orientation coming. We are finalizing summer tech days for next week. I actually met with a gal from Gallup College last week when I was in Bozeman. I set up a meeting with her to kind of follow up what we talked about in May about getting some additional dual credit offerings in our CTE areas, because we didn't start till second semester, so I'm excited about that. We got some things narrowed and solidified and finalized, because meeting in May is crazy. So we got some of those things going on where we need to go. We'll spend the fall working with her and the staff members that this would apply to get those things solidified so we can roll those out second semester. So that's really exciting. It's a great PD, it's professional development for our high school staff too. CTE, they don't have to have a master's degree necessarily in that area to be able to do a dual credit with Gallup College. So it'll be fun to dive into some of that. And finally, after several years, try to get some of that rolling. So we're excited about that. We also worked really hard. Mr. Stick and I are still trying to finalize some of that, the expanding the college and the work opportunities, so college offerings, work opportunities. We built in a time period with one of the teachers to work with Montana Digital Academy, and then Susie and I are looking at a couple of other programs as well to help those kids, especially our upperclassmen. It would affect mainly our juniors and seniors. They'd be bricks and mortar, and then we can give them that opportunity to build in some of those, literally within hopefully a year or two. I mean, we could have students graduating that maybe have their first year of core requirements done for college, and that'd be fantastic if we can free up their schedules to do that. So I know it seems like the wheels turn slow sometimes, but we really are trying to make some of those things happen. So, yeah, that's about it. Lots going on. It's been a busy 2 days.
Any questions? Is that the only fall sports meeting that's being offered?
Oh, if we missed it, sort of the scenario?
And if it's offered, maybe it could be more clear that it's for both middle school and high school.
Sure, but I think, what was I going to say? Usually, the AT will do a makeup meeting, or if it got missed, just contact Mr. Hornhill.
I think he said Friday morning.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Did he say that at the meeting?
I think so,
thought
yeah.
I remember seeing or hearing or something.
I had two
But I wasn't
kids
sure. I
handing
wanted
me
to check,
stuff
yeah.
and I was trying to listen, but I
Yeah.
think that's what
I
it is.
think you're correct, because I think that's what I know, it's one of those verbal things, yeah.
Can we get that put out on Facebook? Really appreciate it.
We can.
Okay, let's settle it.
You guys heard me talk enough tonight, so I'm gonna keep it real short and sweet. Just really excited to have the principals back and others. I got to give an awesome colleague of mine, Dr. Moore, longtime superintendent in Manhattan. I know some of you know him. He stopped by. It was fun to visit with him, and I gave him a tour of our new building, and it was fun to see the teachers working in the classrooms. And we're all just very excited to have everybody back. And so looking forward to the school year, working with these guys on all the incredible things they already talked about, so I won't cover too much myself. Obviously, PIR days, the 14th, we're taking special ed teachers, a group of teachers that have students that they need some extra training for next year. Ms. Hartman and I will be going to just an incredible lineup of speakers and presenters at a conference in Fairmont that we had grant funding to attend. That'll really give us a head start and a chance for professional development to work on reentry plans for those students that need some extra support, make sure that teachers are trained, and we have top-notch presenters there we can learn from. So that's next Monday. We'll be heading out for that, and tech days will be starting here. And so we're going to divide and conquer. Really excited about all of the things that Sherry just shared about dual credit and apprenticeship and all of those opportunities that we're going to bring to the district this year. Obviously working on 21st century and fifth day planning, and working with Brad and Sherry on their everybody's very complex schedules, and making sure that we have all the staff in place, and working on our like we've talked about, trying to do a better job of onboarding and a mentorship program if you have any ideas. I'm kind of trying to come up with a grassroots mentorship program since we don't have a lot of funding. And I also thought it'd be kind of a cool way to tie in the community and these folks that are new to our community. If we could partner with the businesses to kind of sponsor a mentor-mentee pair or something like that. So I have ideas, but I haven't fleshed it all out. So have been reading a lot of research on high quality mentor programs and just want to get something started. By law, we are supposed to have something in place and a formal plan. So would love to have conversations with you guys about that if you have some ideas for me on that. Let's see, what else was I going to touch on? We already talked about numbers, and I think those were the main components. One thing I just wanted to clarify real quick is that I am going to be here all next school year. Super excited about it. Looking forward to it. Going to be here wholeheartedly. And then we'll work with the school board later this winter to talk about the following school year and what you guys think would be best for the district. I know that my colleagues are happy in their roles, and we are all planning on staying in our particular spots and working together as a team next year. I know there's a lot of conversations going around, so I just wanted to clarify a few things briefly. I also want to say thank you so much to Andrea Tulos for being here with us. She is working on her administrative certificate, and so she's earning her hours here at the board meeting. She is not just like brown nosing, just so y'all know. I have to sign off on her paper after this, so she's been stuck here. And just like we did when Miranda Howells was working her way through the administrative program, we will support Andrea and work with her to earn her administrative hours that she needs to gain. And always love getting the opportunity to do that. So we sometimes, if one of us needs to be gone, we can put a sub in Ms. Tulos's classroom and give her the opportunity to step in and kind of work with the admin team and step up and fill some of that void. And she will also be shadowing us throughout the year, just so you all know how that works. And we were really sad to lose Miranda, but it worked out really well. We're really proud of her. And of course, we always like to build up our team and get them ready for their next step. So we're excited for you and look forward to working with you in that capacity this year, just so you all know what as you see her in those roles or at more of our meetings, giving her those leadership opportunities. And I think that's all I have.
Very good. Any questions? Very good. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
I still need